then fumbled for a scroll. Mors raised a brow. Good. Was there something else? Orwine handed him a sealed letter. A raven from King's Landing. Another summons. Mors cracked the seal, scanning the words. His face darkened into a deadpan. The same demand, but now more urgent. The king wants me there immediately. Humph. After this, then. Thank you, Maester Orwine. Orwine nodded, still winded. It is my duty. If there's nothing more, I'll return. Gods keep you, my prince. Jeremy approached. We're ready. Mors nodded at Jeremy, then turned to Ashura, pulling her into a firm embrace before pressing a gentle kiss to her brow. Hold Sunfort while I'm away. 3 days at most I'll be back with my aunt. Ashura smiled softly, though her eyes betrayed worry. I will. Go bring her home, and remember we have a wedding soon. Don't keep me waiting. He lingered on her face for a moment longer, committing every detail to memory, then turned and mounted the ship. Raising his spear high, he leveled it toward the dark horizon where Myr awaited. His voice rang like steel across the deck. Men of the Eclipse set sail. A roar of cheers erupted, echoing across the black waters as the eclipse slipped into the night. 1 day later, deep at night, coast of Myr. The eclipse cut silently through black waters, its sails drawn tight against the faint night breeze. The moon hung low and pale, veiled behind thin clouds, casting the coast of Myr in ghostly silver. From afar, the city loomed like a slumbering beast, its lighthouse a blazing eye that swept its gaze across the sea. On the deck, the men moved with quiet precision, armor muted beneath dark cloaks. No voices we heard, only the creak of wood and the hush of waves against the hull. Jeremy stood near the prow, gaze sharp, while Karen and Davin kept the others steady. At the center, Mors leaned on the rail, Solaris in hand, its black and crimson tassels whispering in the wind. His violet eyes fixed on the coast ahead, hard and unblinking. There, he pointed to a stretch where fog lay thick and guards were few. The city watch is spread thin. We'll use that. We have 3 hours until dawn, we're in and out before then. Understood. A ripple of quiet affirmations followed. They slipped the eclipse between 2 merchant vessels, hiding in plain sight, then cut down the wandering guards who patrolled the docks. As planned, we split here, Mors said. Sir Davin, make sure you're out before the distraction fully ignites. Understood. Davin smirked faintly. No worries, my prince. We've got it. Mors nodded once. Good. Let's rendezvous with Auraborne. If he got the message, he'll be waiting. They ghosted through the city's backstreets, avoiding patrols and slipping past brawls. Suddenly a big fire erupted behind them, likely Davin's handiwork. In the slums, they stopped at a burned-out hovel with a blackened door. Karen stepped forward and knocked a coded rhythm. After a pause, a trapdoor creaked open. They slipped inside. A man in dark robes eyed them sharply. Unyielding we stand. Steadfast we soar, Mors replied. The man gave a curt nod, lowering his sword. Follow me. He led them into a chamber where 5 armed men waited, 1 wounded and being tended. Auraborne stepped forward, relief flickering across his face. Prince Mors. Mors clasped his arm. Auraborne. Good to see you. Looks like you've been busy. Auraborne let out a weary breath. Busy doesn't cover it. We've struck hard, but the syndicates are closing in. With respect, my prince, you shouldn't be here. The men froze at the revelation that it truly was their prince standing before them. There was a change of plans, Mors said simply. I had to come. Where's Idrin? Tomorrow, Auraborne answered grimly. The guilds face each other in open combat. With most of their men called back, we meant to strike then, cause devastation and slip away. Too hot to linger much longer. Good. Mors's tone sharpened. Who's been feeding you information? Auraborne straightened proudly. Local rebels, freed slaves, courtesans, anyone who hates the guilds and Mir as much as we do. They've banded together into a kind of rebellion. With their help, we've struck hard, crippling both the city's trade and its pride. Once the job is finished, we'll let them take the fall while we slip away. Mors exhaled slowly, violet eyes narrowing. Bring as many with us as you can. The stepstones need people. I won't leave them all behind just to cover our trail, but your safety comes first. Auraborne hesitated. That would be difficult, my prince. Try, Mors said flatly. Yes, my prince. Mors's eyes narrowed. Have you seen a Dornish woman here? Scarred face. Stern bearing. Like a noble. Recognition flickered across Auraborne's face. Mallory. She's been leading the rebels. Why? What's going on? Mors's jaw tightened. She's family. Auraborne's eyes widened. Family. Before more could be said, the sounds of battle crashed through the hall, screams in the street, steel striking steel. Auraborne's face drained of color. Gods, they've found us. That could be Sir Idrin. Mors turned sharply, his aura flaring as his eyes narrowed to a razor's focus. With me. They burst into the night to find Idrin bloodied but grinning, his men locked in brutal combat with guild enforcers. Mors didn't hesitate. Knives spun from his hands, archers crumpling at the rear as he surged forward in a blur, an elbow crushing one man's throat, Solaris driving through two more in the same breath. Steel flashed as he tore free his short blade and dagger, catching a strike with one and sliding the other into an eye. In a heartbeat both were sheathed again, his grip shifting on Solaris as he ripped it free, the spearhead bursting through another foe before he vaulted over the falling body, loosing a final knife that buried itself in the spine of a fleeing man. In heartbeats, the fight was done. Mors scanned the carnage. Sir Idrin. Idrin wiped blood from his lip, still smiling madly. My prince, just in time for the fireworks. Wait, what are you doing here? But Mors wasn't listening. His gaze had fixed past Idrin to a woman frozen in shock, scars across her face catching the torchlight. His chest tightened. He pulled off his mask, smiled faintly, and stepped forward. Aunt Melie. Her breath hitched into a sob as he embraced her. The others stood stunned, unsure what they were witnessing. We'll talk later, Mors said firmly, pulling her close. For now we leave. All of us. They fought their way back through alleys toward the docks. Mors glanced at Idrin. Those fireworks you mentioned. Idrin's grin spread, eyes gleaming. Well, I planted. Boom. The city shook with an explosion. Then another. And another. Flames leapt skyward as ships and warehouses erupted. Mors's eyes widened. Idrin only looked giddy, unhinged. Where's your ship? Mors demanded. A merchant vessel in disguise, Idrin said proudly. We've more than one rig to blow. By the time they reached the harbor, chaos had consumed Mir. Ships scattered in panic. Fires spread like wildfire, consuming docks and spilling into the streets. Alarms wailed. The city burned. The eclipse cut free, slipping out amidst the exodus. Idrin and his men vanished into the blaze to finish their work. From the deck, Mors watched the inferno with calm detachment, a trace of grim satisfaction tugging at his lips. Beside him, Melie sat silently, eyes fixed on the ruins of her prison. At last, her voice broke. I wasn't planning to return. I wanted to bury myself there with my memory, my shame. As vengeance. As repentance. Mors's jaw tightened. He let her words hang before answering. Aunt Melie. Manfredi still needs you. Her head whipped toward him, tears brimming. Manfredi. I can't. Not like this. Scarred. Broken. Not just my body, she choked back a sob. I can't let him see me like this. Mors placed a steady hand on hers. He won't see scars. He'll see his mother. Return to him. Her sobs deepened. She clutched him tightly. Mors, you've grown so much. I've missed so much. He held her, violet eyes turning back toward the burning city. Not enough, he thought. But it will have to do. It had been 2 weeks since that night, and Myr was still burning. Cell swords had descended afterward, sacking what remained and spreading even greater devastation. It took the combined might of Tyrosh and Lys to restore a semblance of stability, but now the two powers bickered over the spoils. True peace would not return any time soon. The return of Melie had been an immense event for both the Martells and the Eulers. The reunion between mother and son Melie and Manfredi made every risk worthwhile. Mors had delayed telling her of Lorza's passing until after she was safely reunited with her son, sparing her from further despair. Knowing there was no institutional care in Dorne for such wounds of the spirit, he arranged for Manfredi to remain with his mother constantly, with Luin excusing him from duties with the Spears of the Sun so he could help her heal. A letter was dispatched to Oberyn, urging his swift return. He had gone to Old Town to attend to some urgent matter. Throne Room, King's Landing 2 weeks later. Mors strode into the throne room with Sir Jeremy Norwich and Sir Karen Toland close behind. The Iron Throne loomed before him, jagged, monstrous, nothing like the almost childlike version he remembered from the show. This was no stage prop but a weapon of a seat, ugly, sharp, intimidating. Only then did he realize it was his first time stepping into this room. Prince Martell Targaryen, Prince of the Stepstones, Warden of the Dornish Seas, and advisor to the crown, the herald announced. Mors advanced, his companions at his side, and the three knelt before the throne. King Aerys, hair unkempt and nails grown long, laughed shrilly. Good. My advisor has finally deigned to come serve me. Look, all of you, this is what a proper vassal looks like. I pointed to a thread across the sea, and he burned them to ash. His cackle rang through the hall. Yes, burned them, as they deserved. He sneered at his hand. Do you see, Tywin? This is the power of our blood, the blood of the dragon. Unlike you, you treacherous cat. Tywin's jaw clenched, his fists curling, humiliation carved deep into his face. And you, Rhaegar, Aerys went on, spittle at his lips. You should learn from Mors. Instead of wasting time with your songs and pageantry, you should be out there burning our enemies. Mors felt Rhaegar's emotions ripple toward him, fury, jealousy, and beneath them all, a sickly sense of triumph. The Crown Prince looked his way with a serene smile, but his eyes glittered with mocking playfulness, daring Mors to react. It caught Mors off guard. Triumph? That was not the response he expected from someone just publicly scolded by his father. At last, Aerys turned back to Mors with a manic grin. Rise, all of you. Mors obeyed, and the king's gaze burned into him with manic satisfaction. I initially summoned you for something else, but this action deserves a great prize, and so you shall have it. Aerys raised his voice to the court. Bear witness. By my decree, King Aerys II, I hereby announce that Prince Rhaegar Targaryen will wed Princess Elia Martell. Together, they will bring forth another Mors, this time coming directly from my line. Mors froze. His stomach dropped, terror cutting through his composure. He looked at Rhaegar's smug smile fixed in place. At Aerys cackling like he had delivered some grand boon. At the lords of the court, eyes burning with envy. His voice broke as he forced the words out. Your Grace, but Elia is betrothed to Lord Baelor Hightower. She. Not anymore. Aerys snapped, giddy with madness. As king, I annul that betrothal. Baelor is unworthy to wed so close to you. Let Lord Leighton dare to come and complain. Lord Commander Gerald Hightower, Sir Arthur Dane, and Sir Barristan Selmy shifted at the words, ever so slightly, but their faces remained carved in stone. Mors, too stunned, did not notice. Rhaegar moved forward, his expression soft, his tone almost brotherly. He placed a hand on Mors's shoulder, his voice low enough for only those nearby to hear. "That's right, my good brother. No need to worry. Thanks to my suggestion, we can all be much closer from now on." The smugness radiated off him like heat. Mors's violet eyes darkened. "I'm going to kill him." Applause thundered in the chamber, dragging him back into his body. He felt untethered, like he was watching from afar. His mind reeled. "I need to get away. I need to think. I need." Ares went on, "Additionally, my master of ships, Lucerys Velaryon, will work with Prince Mors to eradicate all pirates from the Narrow Sea. I should like to see my enemies try to use them against me again." His gaze slid smugly toward Tywin as he spoke. "Court dismissed." Ares shrieked, laughter echoing as the lords and courtiers bowed low. And in that moment, he remembered what his mother had said nearly 2 years ago when it seemed the king was favoring him: "That is not necessarily a good thing, Mors. The weight of that attention is heavier than you can imagine." Ares's laughter still hadn't subsided, grating against the chamber walls like a madman's hymn. End of Arc 3: The Rise of the Sun. Chapter 45, Arc 3: The Rise of the Sun, Interlude, Seeds of Rebellion. Early 276 AC. The coast north of Will, the Boneway. Night 1 month before the Lanny Sport Tourney. POVI, Lord Ormond Yeronwood. Lord Ormond Yeronwood and Sir Carol Will, heir to House Will, waited in silence, cloaks drawn tight against the night air. A handful of guards stood at a distance as sentinels. Carol shifted uneasily. "Lord Ormond, father-in-law, how much longer must we wait? If the Martells find out?" Ormond exhaled through his nose, heavy with contempt. "Carol, can you stop being a craven twat for one moment? The arrow has already left the bow. This is no time for hesitation. The Martells will not find out. Their blockade is focused south and southeast, not here. They have not pushed this far." He eyed Carol with open disappointment. "If the boy acted more like a man, perhaps my precious Sorella would not have cooped him with Oberyn Martell. That would have been a proper match, but no, fate denied me that." Carol swallowed. "My father arranged all of this, but, if we are caught, this could." Ormond struck him across the face, the sound sharp in the night. "Silence, you snivelling fool. Your father is dying, and soon gone. That makes you the one I must rely upon, my vassal, my grandson's father. You will fulfill your role. Once House Martell falls, the ashes will be our chance to rise. Many of Sunspear's finest will soon depart for the tourney, I cannot say which, but their absence will be our moment to strike." He turned, spotting movement by the shore. His eyes narrowed. "Get up. Our guests have arrived. Try to look presentable for once as a proper Lord of Dorne." A small fishing ship nudged against the shallows. 5 men disembarked, 2 remaining to guard the boat while 3 approached. At their head walked a giant of a man, tall and broad, clad in Myrish garb, a grisly axe hanging at his side. "You?" "Ormond," the man rumbled in broken common tongue. Ormond stepped forward, courtly in tone. "That I am. Lord Ormond Yeronwood, at your service. This is Sir Carol Will, my ally and kin. And you are Captain Tajrik." The giant sneered. Don't care. True what they say? We kill Martells." Carol instinctively stepped back at the man's size. Ormond sighed in disgust. "That we can. But first, are you Tajrik, or not?" The brute furrowed his brow, then gave a curt nod. "I am Tajrik the Great. I command the pirates." Ormond's tone warmed faintly. "Good. Then we can reach an accord. In 2 months' time, Sunspear will be at its weakest. Most of their fleet and standing host remain tied at Gaston Grey, hounding me. If timed properly, I can grant you easy entry into the castle. You will raze it to the ground. He smiled cruelly. Tajrik studied him, then grinned with jagged teeth. Ha! I love how you kill each other. Good. Will that Valyrian be there? I want to split him with my axe. Ormond's expression flickered, then he nodded. Perhaps. If not, the blow will wound him all the same. Tajrik grunted, disappointed, but finally said, then we have an accord. Carol, emboldened, blurted out, wait, you should kill Oberyn too. He's in Old Town, but we could draw him out. Tajrik's eyes narrowed. He spat at Carol's feet. Rat! You stink of rat! Speak to me like that again and I'll cut you in half. Ormond stepped quickly between them, bowing slightly. Enough. Captain Tajrik, when the time comes, I'll send word. Tajrik gave a curt nod. Good. He turned, stomping back toward the waiting boat with his men. Ormond stood in silence for a moment before looking back at Carol, his face unreadable. I wanted, Carol stammered. Ormond only shook his head. Come. We're done here. Mid 277 AC White Tower Training Grounds, King's Landing. 1 month after the rescue of King Aerys. POV 2 Sir Arthur Dayne. Steel clashed in the training yard. Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, circled Sir Barristan Selmy, 2 practice longswords flashing in his hands. Barristan pressed forward with sword and shield, his movements measured, his presence unshakable. Arthur's strikes came swift and fluid, a blur of feints and flourishes, while Barristan countered with unyielding technique and perfect economy of motion. Sir Gerald Hightower, the White Bull, stood with arms folded, watching. Enough, he called. We've work yet to do. Sir Oswell and Sir Harlan must be relieved. The 2 knights broke apart, nodding respectfully before placing their practice weapons back in the racks. Arthur, Gerald's voice cut across the yard, what's wrong with you? You've been distracted since Duskendale. Still brooding over our failure in duty. Arthur stilled. Barristan, about to leave, turned back at once. Arthur, he said gently, will you finally speak of it? We are brothers here. Whatever weighs on you, share it. Arthur looked between them, then down at the dirt. After a long pause, he sighed, as though steeling himself. He raised his eyes to Gerald. Lord Commander, what is a knight? Gerald and Barristan exchanged startled looks. Gerald frowned. Is that what troubles you? I doubt you mean the definition. A knight is meant to embody the chivalric virtues honor, loyalty, courage, the defense of the weak, service to one's liege. The ideal every warrior should aspire to. Barristan gave a quiet nod of agreement. Arthur listened, then looked skyward. His voice took on the solemn cadence of ritual as he recited. In the name of the warrior, I charge you to be brave. In the name of the father, I charge you to be just. In the name of the mother, I charge you to defend the young and innocent. In the name of the maid, I charge you to protect all women. In the name of the smith, I charge you to work diligently and honorably. In the name of the crone, I charge you to be wise. In the name of the stranger, I charge you to face death with courage. As he finished, Barristan and Gerald stood a little taller, quietly repeating the words with him. But Arthur's voice hardened. I swore these vows. We swore them. Yet, you've seen the king. The slaughter of innocent small folk at Duskendale. You've seen how he treats Queen Rilla. You've seen the prince's mask, how many corpses lie hidden beneath it. The weight of his words hung heavy. Barristan clenched a fist, anger flashing across his face. Gerald seemed to sag, shoulders drawn with age and burden. Arthur lowered his gaze, confusion and regret etched in his voice. Am I still a knight? Neither man spoke at first. At last, Gerald straightened, donning the mantle of Lord Commander. No, he said gravely. You gave that up the moment you became a king's guard. Arthur and Barristan both stared at him. Gerald held their eyes, then recited with deliberate weight. I swear to ward the king with all my strength, to give my blood for his. I swear to obey, to serve, to defend. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall guard his secrets, obey his commands. Ride at his side, and defend his honor until my last breath. He exhaled deeply. These are not vows of chivalry. They are vows of absolute loyalty for the king, for the realm. Never forget that, and guard your tongue, for your own sake. Gerald turned to leave, pausing at the edge of the yard. It's too late to second-guess your vows now. But if ever you doubt, come to me. With the exception of Harlan, I am older than the rest of you. I've wrestled with these same thoughts. I can provide guidance. Then he was gone. Silence lingered until Barristan spoke softly. Arthur, will you be all right? Arthur nodded faintly. I'll manage. But I fear for Mors and for my sister. The prince, something is wrong with him. At Ashura's name, Barristan stiffened, his whole demeanor shifting. What did you hear? Arthur blinked. I'm not certain. But I overheard John Connington and Prince Rhaegar speaking. They spoke of dealing with Mors. Rhaegar muttered about prophecies said Mors might be a contender. He's been fixated on Dorne, especially on Mors. Barristan's face grew solemn. He let out a long breath. Say nothing of this. Speak only to me if you hear more. We owe Prince Mors much. And your sister, she is in good hands. The two knights shared a look, an unspoken understanding forged in silence. Start of 278 AC Lord Solar, the Eyrie Castle, the Vale. 3 days after Lord Stefan's death. POV 3 Eddard Stark. Shouting reverberated through the ancient halls, the falcon banners shifting in the constant wind that swept the high throne room of the Eyrie. Eddard Stark sighed as he watched his foster father, Jon Arryn, once again trying to restrain Robert Baratheon from doing something reckless with the help of Elbert Arryn. It was the 10th time in 3 days. Robert's parents, Lord Stefan and Lady Cassina, had perished in a pirate attack on their return from a mission for King Aerys, leaving Robert, at 16, the new Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. 7 hells, John, Elbert, let me go! Robert roared, swinging away, struggling against his own grief as much as Jon's steady words. I'll raise my banners, march to the stepstones, and smash that sand dragon with my hammer. Then I'll scour every last pirate from the narrow sea. Elbert, sporting a black eye, shouted in exasperation, Damn it, you wild stag, calm yourself. Jon's voice remained calm but weary. Robert, we've been over this. It was not Prince Mors's doing. Wasn't it? Robert snapped, panting. Who was it that drove the pirates out of the stepstones? Who was it that set up his so-called order there? Eddard kept his silence, though his thoughts stirred. Robert is grieving, he's not thinking properly. Prince Mors only followed the charge laid upon him by King Aerys. The earlier pirate skirmishes were fought defending his family. From what I've heard, he does nothing lightly, every act rooted in duty and honor. Even Brandon speaks highly of him, and that's saying something, considering Brandon once tried to charm his betrothed and earned a sharp rebuke for it. Elbert, still rubbing at his bruised eye, raised his hands. Please, Robert, calm down. One more swing like that and I'll be half blind before supper. Ned. Robert's voice tore him from his thoughts. Don't just stand there like a training dummy. Tell Jon. Tell Elbert. Tell them it's all that bastard's fault. Eddard opened his mouth but found no words. Thankfully, Jon spoke for him. Jon rubbed his brow with a weary sigh, casting a concerned glance at Elbert before fixing Robert with steady eyes. Robert, even if there were fault which you know in your heart there is not, Prince Mors is no foe you can afford. He is prince of a rising realm, tied closely to Dorne, and favored by the king. I thought that after 3 days you would have cooled your temper. His eyes softened. Can you at least set it aside until we lay your parents to rest? Robert's shoulders sagged, the fight bleeding out of him. His voice dropped low. What does it matter? A Dornish alliance, the king's favour, with the Stormlands, the Vale and the North united, do we have cause to fear anyone? But his bravado rang hollow in the shadow of his grief. Eddard studied Robert with pity. To lose one's parents so suddenly. Despite standing as tall as a grown man at 6 feet 3 inches, 190 centimeters, he is only 16, same as Albert, barely a year older than me. Eddard stepped forward, placing a steady hand on Robert's shoulder. Robert, John, and Albert are right. Take time to breathe, to grieve. You know Albert and I are your brothers, and we'll stand with you through this, But now think of Stannis, and of Renly. Robert gave a bitter laugh. Stannis will manage, the sullen fool always does. He never shows a thing, never cracks, sometimes I wonder if he even has a heart. But Renly? Renly's only a babe. He'll never know our mother's arms, her warmth, never hear her voice again. His voice faltered, then broke into a furious roar. And all because of that bastard. The chamber echoed with his fury. Eddard only sighed. Here we go again. Early 278 AC Mere, abandoned cot. 3 days before Mors's arrival. POV for Sir Idrin Co. In the shadows of a ruined cot, Sir Idrin Co had clandestine meeting with the informant spy master Auraborne Sand had secured for him. The woman, once a slave, now hardened and scarred, had proven invaluable. Through her network she'd sown chaos among the fractured guilds and syndicates of Mere. Madame Mallory, Idrin began, his voice low but eager, your help has been priceless. If you called me here with such urgency, I take it something significant has happened. He studied her closely. Beneath her scars and stoic demeanor, he could imagine the beauty she once carried before cruelty had carved her life to pieces. Mallory glanced around the room, eyes sharp with fear of discovery. Yes. Something major. The syndicates held a secret meeting under pressure from the conclave of magisters. They've agreed to settle their disputes in one final battle, to restore stability in Mere and decide who claims the lion's share of power. They're pulling back their men for it. 4 days from now, they'll fight. Amazing, really, how much drunk men will confess to a pretty courtesan. Idrin chuckled nervously. Ha, yes, drink loosens many tongues. But as her words sank in, his mind raced. They'll pull back all their forces, for one decisive clash. His pulse quickened. The timing was perfect. He'd been dying to test the new modifications to his fire flasks devices he could now set to ignite at timed intervals. His eyes widened with glee, and a strange, manic cackle slipped free. Mallory recoiled, edging a step toward the door. Handsome though Idrin was, in that moment he looked utterly unhinged. Realizing his gaffe, Idrin reined in his grin. Forgive me, madam. A thought struck me, an excellent plan. Tell me, you and your people, you wouldn't be opposed to a little fire, would you? Mallory tilted her head, suspicion giving way to curiosity. A little fire? You mean, burn them? While they're inside? Her lips curved into something sharper. That's exactly it, Idrin said, excitement bubbling. In fact, we could go further. Not just the barracks while they sleep. The syndicate buildings, their ports, their ships, their factories, we could cripple Mere in one blow. Mallory's eyes went wide, then narrowed with ruthless delight. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. Yes, yes, I see it now. That would be perfect. You'll have our full support. Whatever you need, say the word. Idrin and Mallory exchanged a conspirator's grin. In the silence of the abandoned cot, their plotting gave way to occasional, eerie bursts of laughter, strange cackles heralding the spark of something catastrophic. Early 278 AC Lords Solar, Sons pair. 1 week after Doran's inauguration. POVV Prince Mors Martell. As Doran made his way toward his solar for an important meeting, Oberyn suddenly intercepted him. "Brother," Oberyn said sharply, "when can I finally see my boy, Maron? Those pompous blood royals keep him from me out of spite. This cannot be allowed to stand." Doran sighed. "Soon, Oberyn. Calm yourself, it won't be long now." "I am calm." Oberyn snapped. "I've wanted to ride to Euronwood for over a year and tear those bastards apart for daring to keep me from my son and to put pressure on us. As Prince of Dorne, surely you won't allow it. Look how they insulted you at your inauguration. By the way, well done putting them in their place. That was thrilling to watch." Doran's expression grew more serious as he recalled that day. "Will you be leaving again?" "Not if something interesting is happening," Oberyn said with a grin. "Follow me, then." They entered the solar, where Ariohota stood with a contingent of guards. Recently raised to captain of the guard, the Norvosi towered like a fortress in flesh. Doran nodded to him and stepped inside. Oberyn's surprise was plain when he saw who awaited them: Prince Lewin Martell, Prince Manfredi Martell, already being groomed as Lewin's successor with the spears of the Sun Lord Beric Dane, Lord Franklin Old Hawk Fowler, Lord Ulrich Euler, Lord Trebor Jourdain, nephew of their father, and, unexpectedly, Lord Dagos Manwoody, long counted a loyal vassal of House Euronwood. "Good," Doran said as he took his seat. "You are all here. Sit." They bowed their heads. "Thank you, my prince." Doran laced his fingers and looked each man in the eye before speaking. "Lord Ormond Euronwood has betrayed Dorne." The room rippled with surprise. Only Dagos Manwoody seemed unsurprised. Doran continued. "His vassals, especially Lord Edmund Will, have betrayed Dorne." All eyes turned to Dagos, who shifted uneasily under their scrutiny. And Lord Dagos Manwoody, Lord of Red March, was drawn into their schemes as well. Doran's words hung like a death sentence. He let the silence linger before adding, "But it was unintentional. We have reached an arrangement. He and his house will be pardoned, depending on their performance." Lord Beric leaned forward. "Performance of what, my prince?" Doran's mouth curled in a cold smile. "Their performance when we crush this rebellion in its infancy." Now all understood. "In 2 weeks, Doran said, the noose I have prepared will close. Houses Euronwood and will be nearly exterminated. We will spare only the youngest male heirs, who will be raised as my wards. The rest, the true culprits, will rot in Gaston Grey as a lesson to all Dorne." His eyes swept the lords. "You are the ones I trust most. When this is done, you will stand as the strongest lords of Dorne." His gaze lingered on Dagos. "And you will be remembered as the lucky one who saw the writing on the wall and chose the proper side." His tone hardened. They orchestrated Oberyn's vilification in the court of rumor. They enabled the pirate raid upon Sun's pair, wreaking havoc even in Planky Town. They conspire still with foreign powers, plotting rebellion. They endangered Dorne itself. The room fell silent. "Do not mistake my calm for weakness," Doran said coldly. "I was my mother's master of whisperers before I became her hand. Trust me, you do not want me focused on you." He leaned back. "In 2 weeks, they fall. Prepare yourselves. Uncle Lewin will coordinate with you." His eyes fixed on Dagos one last time, who avoided eye contact. "Dismissed." The lords filed out, murmuring. Oberyn burst into laughter. "Magnificent! This is the best news I've had in months. Thank you, brother, this is a gift." He clapped Manfredi on the shoulder, and called out to Trebor. "Come, cousins, let's celebrate." Trebor smiled, and followed. Manfredi hesitated, glancing at Lewin and Doran for approval. Receiving a nod, he fell in step behind Oberyn. Once the solar was quiet, Lewin turned to Doran. Why exclude Mors? You waited until he left to reveal your plan. Why? Doran deflated into his chair, rubbing his brow. Uncle, what do the people call Mors? Lewin frowned, then answered reluctantly. They call him the Son of Dorne. The Dragon of the South. They. Exactly, and on, Doran cut in. The accolades never end. They would rather have him as Prince of Dorne than me, who has labored in silence for years to keep us safe. When Mother ruled, Mors was seen as her tool, her extension. Under me, his fame only undermines my rule, proof to some that I am unworthy. And besides, Mors is ruler of his own realm now. Lewin sat down slowly. Doran, don't let this fester between you. He is still your brother. It won't, Doran said softly. I love my siblings dearly, especially Mors. I would burn the world to protect them. But we each have a duty, to the realm, to House Martell. I let Oberyn follow his whims because, in the end, it serves us. Elia has her role as well. He sighed, his shoulders heavy. But it is regrettable. We once held the greatest weapon Dorne has ever known, and in a single stroke, Aerys stole it from my grasp. With Mors bound to the stepstones, our strength is divided. Yet this is still the strongest Dorne has ever been. And if the time comes, I know Mors will answer. He opened a drawer and pulled out a letter, weighing it before passing it to Lewin. Lewin read and paled. Is he mad? He looked up, expecting outrage, but saw only contemplation in Doran's eyes. You cannot be considering this. Tell me you are not. Doran sighed. What is there to consider? It is beyond my hands. Rhaegar wishes to bind our houses closer. He convinced Aerys to wed him to Elia, annulling her betrothal to Baelor Hightower by royal decree. And, though she once favored Baelor, I know Elia has loved Rhaegar from the moment they met. Lewin stared as if at a stranger. Doran, you can reject this outright, even as a token gesture. And you, more than anyone, know how Mors feels about him. This is not a matter of temperament. Mors believes he is dangerous. With his abilities, with the knowledge of what he is, are you truly willing to bind Elia to Rhaegar? And with rebellion on the horizon? We have prepared to withstand it, not sink into it. He flung the letter back at Doran, his voice hot with fury. Doran calmly folded the letter and slipped it back into the drawer. Silence stretched until he spoke, voice cool and deliberate. That is the point, uncle. We know it is coming. We know where from. And now, with our strength and wealth, we can seize the chance to guide its course. If Mother were still alive and in her prime, she would see the wisdom in it. All we need is one heir from Elia and Rhaegar. After that, the danger can be removed. With an ideal heir, and the Seven Kingdoms weakened by war, House Martell can reign supreme. Lewin's eyes widened, then dimmed with weariness. He rose slowly, walked to the door, and stopped. If this goes forward, I will resign my post. I will follow Elia, and I will protect her with my life. I will not leave her to that wretch. You are Prince of Dorne now, but remember Mors is not your vassal. And Oberyn would burn the world for Elia. If you are not afraid of alienating them, then continue. With that, Lewin left, his disappointment like a shadow in the room. Doran remained staring at the door. After a long silence, he murmured, Is it wrong to want our house to be more? Chapter 46, Chapter XLII, The Sun and the Star. Mid-278 AC. It had been 6 months since King Aerys had unilaterally betrothed Princess Elia to Prince Rhaegar, while commanding Lord Lucerys Velaryon to aid Mors in scouring the narrow sea of pirates. For Mors, it marked his greatest failure to date, a bitter irony, born of his own success. Aerys seemed to crave another Mors in his line, and Rhaegar had engineered the matter as a supposed reward for Mors and Dorne. What was a betrothal to the heir of the realm if not a prize? Yet in truth, it was a chain. In doing this, Rhaegar tore away the mask of courtesy and revealed himself an adversary. The tragedy was that only Mors seemed to notice. Elia was blind, smitten with the prince's charm, while Rhaegar wore his mask flawlessly in her presence. Their marriage was set for the turn of the year, and Mors could feel it in his bones. Unrest would follow shortly thereafter. As expected, Dorne had struck swiftly at houses Euronwood and Will. The culling was brutal, yet decisive, extinguishing rebellion in a single masterful stroke. House Will was reduced to landed knights, their ancient pride broken. House Euronwood lost vast swaths of land and was reduced to little more than a minor lordship. The surviving adults were condemned to Gaston Grey for life, while their child heirs were taken to Sun's Pair for re-education. Most telling of all, the young Euronwood heiress was betrothed to Maron Sand under Dornish law of matrilineal succession, binding Oberyn's bastard son into the future of one of Dorne's oldest lines. Oberyn bristled at shackling his boy so young, but even he could see the advantage. Mors had hoped to be called for this work, yet the summons never came. He was left disappointed, forced instead to watch through the glass candle. The extended use had drained him, but the potential of such a tool was undeniable. Then came the unexpected. At the funeral of Lord Stefan Baratheon and Lady Cassina Estermont, Robert Baratheon made his will plain: no envoy from Dorne or the Stepstones would be welcome. In his grief, Robert had fixed blame for his parents' deaths upon Mors, and now he hungered for blood. This Baratheon cousin, it seemed, would prove unreasonably stubborn. Tensions in Sun's Pair soon boiled over. The Martell brothers came to blows, literal ones, when it was revealed that Dorne had not opposed, but had approved, Elia's match with Rhaegar. Mors, though furious, had spared his brother's face, striking body blows rather than leaving marks the realm would see. Oberyn had no such restraint. Had Mors not held him back, Dorne might have faced his vassals with blackened eyes. Though Mors could understand the logic behind Doran's decision, it still felt like betrayal of the highest order. And worst of all, every attempt to dissuade Elia from the match was met with sharp reprimand and bitter disappointment. She was determined to be Rhaegar's queen, and she would not be moved. Yet politics and betrayal could not halt life's march forward. Even in the shadow of unrest, another moment arrived: the long-planned union of Mors and Ashura. Sunfort throne room, the Stepstones. The sun shone brilliantly that day, draping the Sunfort in golden light. Once a pirate stronghold steeped in blood and marauding, it now stood transformed into a place of splendor. Gardens bloomed in riotous color, fountains whispered in the courtyards, and silk banners adorned the walls, those of House Dane beside Mors's own standard, a red sun and golden spear upon a black field, echoing the colors of House Targaryen. Where once there had been fear and shadow, the fortress now stood as a hall of dreams and of strength. Nobles and dignitaries filled the throne room, their eyes reflecting the flickering light of golden candelabra. A strong fleet patrolled the Stepstones and beyond into the narrow sea, secured through Mors's command and the aid of the royal fleet under Lord Lucerys Velaryon, master of ships. Today was not only a union of two houses, it was the cementing of a realm. They had gathered to witness the marriage of Prince Mors Martell Targaryen, so named by King Aerys himself, and Lady Ashura Dane, who from this day forth would be hailed as Princess of the Stepstones. Already, the retainers of House Dane, guards in their starry livery and maids in silver and violet, had taken their place within the Sunfort, a sign of the bond now forged between the two great houses. Prince Lewin Martell, eldest of House Martell, presided over the ceremony with quiet gravitas, as Princess Lorza had once done at Doran's wedding to Melario years before. It was a sorrowful thought that Lorza, once the unshakable heart of Sun's Pair, would never live to see either Mors or Elia wed. And Oberyn, well, should he ever marry, it would be a miracle worthy of a ballad all its own. Prince Oberyn Martell, together with commanders Bedwyck Euler, Idrin Co, and Talor Sand, stood flanked by chosen men of the Spears of the Sun, lieutenants and comrades who had fought at Mors's side during his years in the elite force. Members of Mors's small council were present as well, along with his personal guard led by Sir Karen Toland, their presence lending further weight and solemnity to the gathering, a milestone marking how far they have come together. Oberyn's smile, near constant these past few months, lingered still. Vengeance against houses Yeronwood and Will had been won, and his son, Maron Sand, was finally restored to him. At his side stood Madame Cyrenaico. The two had been seen together often of late, and since Cyrena had opened a new branch of her courtesan house in Sunfort, Oberyn's frequent visits there had become a welcome sight for Mors. Part of his presence, no doubt, tied to the simmering frustration that Doran had not opposed Elia's betrothal to Rhaegar, one that Mors shared. More curious still were Oberyn's exchanges with Malara Hightower. At last, someone had managed to leave the Red Viper speechless, and the sight of it was priceless. The assembled lords and ladies looked on, many with awe, others with quiet joy. Among them stood Prince Doran Martell with Princess Melario, who watched with a soft smile, a wet nurse at her side cradling infant Ariane, while Ario Hota loomed protectively behind them as always, though even he seemed to smile at the event taking place. Sir Ulrich Dane, heir to Starfall, stood nearby, pride plain in his eyes as he looked upon his sister and good brother. Lord Trebor Jourdain, Lord Franklin Fowler and Lord Harmon Euler were present as well, joined by Harmon's uncle, Sir Ormond Euler, younger brother to Lady Melie. Prince Manfredi Martell also stood among them, newly Lord of the Stoneway, accompanied by his recent betrothed, Lady Jane Fowler, daughter of Lord Franklin, a match arranged by Doran to further bind Dorne's great houses in the wake of the rebellion he had only just quelled. Beside Manfredi stood Lady Melie Euler. Though her spirit and health had been restored, she still wore a veil, unable to cast aside the scars both seen and unseen that her ordeal had left behind. From the Iron Throne, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen had come to represent royal witness, standing beside Princess Elia Martell, radiant in silks of Martell colours. Flanking them were the King's Guard Sir Arthur Dane, solemn pride in his sister's moment, with Sir Oswell Went and Sir Jonothor Derry. With Rhaegar were also Sir John Connington, Sir Richard Lonmouth, and Sir Miles Mouton, the last two once his squires, now knights raised by his own hand. Near Elia stood Alyssa Euler, ever the vigilant shadow at her side. Yet even in her watchfulness, a trace of a bittersweet smile lingered on her lips as she watched the proceedings. Malara Hightower had dressed up for the occasion, though what that meant by her standards was anyone's guess. She flitted about the room, skirts swirling as she skipped happily in the company of Sienna, Mors's spymaster of internal affairs, and Nerya, his treasurer. To everyone's surprise, the three had become fast friends. Nerya, in particular, was fond of Malara, who delighted in pointing out hidden corners or secret places where she swore treasure was buried. More than once the two had gone off on impromptu treasure hunts, much to Sienna's exasperation. The amusement of the hall peaked during one such encounter when a knight of House Gargallen made the mistake of mocking Malara. Before Sienna or Nerya could react, Malara spun on him, eyes alight with mischief. "Oh, I know you," she chirped. "You're that knight who likes to wrestle naked with the sailors down by the port at night. What I don't understand is if your back hurts so much, why do you always moan when they press against it? That seems very silly to me. Hey, where are you going?" The knight, red as a beetroot, beat a hasty retreat to the sound of stifled laughter, while Malara blinked innocently after him, head tilted as though she truly didn't understand. Sienna only sighed, and Nerya tried and failed to hide her grin. But perhaps most surprising of all to many was Sir Jeremy Norwich. The old knight, once sworn brother and confidant to Prince Daemon Targaryen, now stood at Mors's side as if a father, his hand steady on the young prince's shoulder. Opposite him stood Lord Beric Dane, representing Ashura, both pillars bearing witness to the binding of their kin. When vows were spoken and hands bound in silken cord, Luwin's voice rang clear through the vaulted chamber. "By the vows spoken and the binding of hands, I name them before you, Prince Mors Martell, and Princess Ashura Dane, husband and wife, bound in honor, bound in blood. Welcome them." Thunderous applause filled the hall. The banners of sun and star fluttered in the warm sea breeze, and the roar of celebration echoed from the Sunfort out into the bright waters of the narrow sea. The hall still echoed with cheers when Luwin lowered his hands. At his gesture, Mors and Ashura turned, their fingers still bound in silken cord, and walked together toward the open archway at the far end of the throne room. The doors were drawn wide. Beyond them stretched a grand balcony overlooking the courtyards and the sea. As the couple emerged into the sunlight, a roar erupted from below. Soldiers, sailors, small folk, and merchants crowded the yards and terraces, their voices crashing like waves against the stone. "Prince Mors," they cried. "Son of Dorne! Star of Starfall! Dragon of Sunfort! Prince and Princess of the Stepstones!" Mors raised his hand. Ashura, radiant in violet and silver, smiled brilliantly as petals of red and gold were thrown skyward, fluttering down like falling suns. Together they stood for a long moment, letting the roar of the people wash over them, before returning to the hall. By the time they re-entered the Sunfort's great hall, tables had been set and a feast prepared. Platters of roasted goat, spiced fish, olives, and figs crowded the boards, while arbor red, arbor gold, Myrish fire wine, and others flowed without restraint. Musicians struck up lively tunes, pipes and lutes filling the air with bright notes of celebration. Mors rose from his seat, lifting his cup. The hall quieted. "My lords, my ladies, my friends. You honor Ashura and me with your presence today. This hall was once a place of sorrow and death. Tonight, because of you, it shines with light and laughter. And perhaps soon, it will ring with new life." He glanced at Ashura with a flirtatious smirk, one she met without backing down. He continued, "To my family, who have stood by me, and to those who crossed sea and stone to be here, you have my thanks. May this union strengthen not only two houses, but all who call Dorne and the Stepstones friends. Raise your cups, and drink with us not only to our bond, but to the bonds between us all." He turned to Ashura, pressing a kiss to her hand, before raising his cup high. Applause broke out across the hall, joined by cheers and a loud hoop from Malara that drew laughter from nearby tables. Prince Doran raised his cup next. "To my brother, the sun, and to Ashura, now his star. May their union burn bright for Dorne, for the Stepstones, and for all who call them home. To the sun and the star." "To the sun and the star," voices echoed back, cups clashing together. Oberyn was quick to follow. "And may the bed hold sturdier than the table," he called, earning a chorus of laughter and groans alike. Ashura rolled her eyes, though her lips curved despite herself, while Mors only smirked in quiet amusement. At another table, Malara Hightower was already on her feet, skipping in a slow circle with a goblet in hand. "Sun and star, kiss and play, chase the darkness far away," she sang before collapsing into Ciena's lap, giggling uncontrollably, clearly already drunk. Ciena buried her face in her palm while Nerya looked torn between outrage and laughter. And the toasts rolled on, some solemn, some bawdy, some clumsy, but all entertaining in their own way. Prince Rhaegar sat quietly beside Elia, his smile as charming as ever. He entertained lords with practiced ease, murmuring with one and then another, but his eyes strayed too often toward the new couple. When Ashura laughed, his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. At his elbow hovered Jon Connington, devoted as a hound, slipping away now and again only to return with another lord to fold into Rhaegar's orbit with the help of Miles Mouton and Richard Lynmouth. Every so often, though, Jon cast Elia a strange look. Mors could be mistaken, his perception had misled him before, but something about Jon Connington struck him as strange. Is he jealous of Elia? Is that what those looks mean? A slow spark of interest flickered. If so, that could be useful. He masked the thought behind a calm expression as he noticed Arthur Dane approaching. Arthur came forward quietly, stopping before his sister and Mors. "You look well, Ashura," Arthur said, his tone softer than usual. "And you, my prince, may this bond be a strong one." Ashura's smile lit her face. "Thank you, brother." Mors chuckled. "None of that my prince business, Arthur. We've been friends too long for that, and now we're good brothers in truth." Arthur allowed himself a small smile. "That we are. But some formalities still have their place. His expression sobered as his eyes turned solemn. "She is my blood, my sister. Guard her well." Mors met his gaze without hesitation. "On my life." Ashura rolled her eyes at the byplay, though she knew well enough why Arthur worried. Under her breath, she murmured, "This protective brother." Arthur gave a small nod. He kissed Ashura's brow, then clasped Mors by the arm. For a moment he lingered, watching the room. When the attention shifted toward Oberyn's laughter, Arthur leaned in, pressing a folded scrap of parchment into Mors's hand. "Read later," he whispered. And with that, he stepped back into the crowd, his white cloak trailing after him. Mors was caught off guard but gave no sign, closing his hand around the note and carrying on as though nothing had happened. At one part in the evening, when the musicians struck a slower song, the spears of the sun rose to perform a spear dance in Mors's honor. Their weapons flashed in intricate arcs of silver and steel, movements sharp as flame. Oberyn joined midway, his body a blur of speed and precision, drawing cheers and shouts from the crowd. From their seats, Cyrena and Idrin clapped wildly, Idrin leaning over to mutter something about fireworks. He dismissed it with a frown, surely he'd misheard, since he had made it clear such things were forbidden. The feast stretched long into the evening, wine flowing as freely as mirth. Yet beneath the applause, beneath the music and merriment, Mors could not shake the sense of storm clouds gathering. Rhaegar's gaze. Robert's simmering hatred. Elia's blind devotion. Ominous currents waiting beyond the light. But for this night, he let them fade. He rose, raised his cup high in thanks for the performance of the spears of the Sunday. The hall roared once more. Then, from the sea, a thunderous crack split the night. Fire blossomed above the waves in a cascade of color. Gasps swept the hall, and for an instant panic loomed until Idrin leapt to his feet with arms outstretched. "Congratulations, my prince," he crowed. Laughter rippled through the chamber as guests, realizing it was part of the event, clapped and cheered at the display. Mors only rubbed his brow while Ashura offered him a cramped smile, one that promised Idrin would soon regret his brilliance. Later that night, Mors stood on the patio outside his chamber, the moon bright above, its light silvering the stones. In one hand he held the folded scrap Arthur had slipped him, the other resting by the flame of a guttering candle. "Silver knives have been loosed for you. Guard the moon behind the Sunday." Short. Simple. But the meaning was clear enough. They were coming for him again, and Ashura might be in danger too. And they could only mean Rhaegar. Mors. The voice pulled him from his thoughts. He turned and nearly forgot how to breathe. Ashura stepped out, almost bare, her body wrapped in little more than a sheer Lysani slip, her every step a deliberate prowl. She looked like a lioness stalking prey, violet eyes gleaming in the candlelight. "By the gods!" She smirked when she saw his reaction. "How long will you brood out here? You've a beautiful new wife waiting for you on her wedding night. Or perhaps you'd rather I keep myself entertained alone?" She arched a brow, teasing. "Or are you waiting for Malara to sneak into our bed again?" Mors swallowed, then let a wolfish grin spread across his face. He touched the note to the flame until it curled into ash, then turned to her. "I hope you rested well today," he said, voice low and predatory. "Because it will be a long night." Ashura laughed softly as he swept her up into his arms, carrying her inside. Her giggles trailed behind them as the door closed, candlelight spilling across the chamber. Chapter 47, Chapter Slyene, The Sun Before the Storm. Fire. The world was burning. Fire raged wherever he looked, devouring everything, devouring all. He stood helpless, unable to move. In an instant, the world twisted, and he was standing in a throne room, though twisted and unrecognizable in the blaze consumed by fire, its shape barely familiar. A shrill, insane cackling echoed above the roar. Mors turned, and there, upon a throne wreathed in flames, sat King Ares. Blood streamed from his eyes, mouth, and hands. His hair blazed like a torch, yet the laughter only grew louder as he burned. Then Ares saw him. The laughter cut short. His lips curled in a crooked smile. "Reward," he hissed before bursting into mad cackling once again. At the base of the throne, a silver snake slithered forward. Its eyes gleamed as it fixed on Mors, its cruel smile unmistakably human. Its tongue lashed out unnaturally long, brushing across Mors's face. He tried to move but couldn't. The serpent shuddered in ecstasy as it tasted him, then drew back and whispered in a hissing drawl. "My dear cousin." The vision shifted. The throne room vanished. Now he stood amid a burning city. Charred corpses littered the streets, their empty sockets picked apart by feasting ravens. Before his eyes, a towering spire rose, impossibly high, its peak lost in smoke and flame. At its summit hung a gilded cage. Inside swayed a Dornish flower, delicate, defiant, calling to him. She stretched toward him, her voice frail but desperate. "Mors, save me." He reached, but his body refused him. The cage drifted further away. Then the fire broke. A sudden chill swept in from the north. Black clouds rolled down, trailing frost and death. Ice crawled across the land, freezing all it touched. His own limbs stiffened, breath turning to mist. Again, he was trapped. Helpless. "I need to get out. I can't move. It's all falling apart." And then warmth. He turned, and saw her. A breathtaking woman stepped forward through the fire and ice with effortless grace. Tall and striking, her figure was voluptuous and commanding, draped in flowing silks of violet and silver that shimmered like starlight. Her obsidian black hair spilled in glossy waves, framing eyes of luminous violet, bright, mischievous, and dangerous, yet filled with warmth. Even through his frozen body, her presence radiated heat, radiated love. The frost cracked and fire dimmed as she drew closer. Her lips parted, her voice cutting through dream, through ice and fire alike. "Wake up!" Late 278 AC Red Wine Straits, the Reach. Mors woke with a start. He glanced left, then right. Ashura still lay asleep beside him, breathing deep and steady. He let out a long breath. "Another nightmare," he muttered. He rubbed his brow and stayed there a moment. They've been a constant since that day. He remembered the throne room, the mad cackling, the false smiles, the thunderous applause. "I was close to starting the rebellion myself," he thought, the edge in him colder than the dream. With a quiet sigh, he carefully eased Ashura's arm from around him and swung his legs over the bed only to jerk them back at once. There, curled on the floor, was Malara. She clutched the glass candle to her chest as if it were a child's toy, a line of drool shining at the corner of her mouth. Mors twitched at the sight, then shook his head with a reluctant smile. This had become routine. No matter what they did, Malara always found some new and ingenious way to sneak into their chamber. Ashura and Mors had nearly given up trying to stop her. He dressed quietly and slipped out. The creak of wood and the salt on the air reminded him he wasn't in Sunfort. He stepped onto the deck, where the first light of dawn brushed the sea in shades of silver. Sailors saluted as he passed. Ahead, the great tower of Old Town rose above the mists, the high tower catching the morning sun. "We'll reach the harbour in a few hours," he thought. "I should wake Ashura and Malara before long." It had been almost 2 months since the wedding. Now, at last, they were bound for Old Town for a long overdue conversation with Lord Leighton Hightower. Mors let his eyes linger on the distant tower, a monument of stone and history. He exhaled slowly. "This should be an interesting conversation," he murmured. Late 278 AC The High Tower, Old Town. The Stepstones contingent made port at dawn. Mors, Ashura, Malara, Jeremy, Karen, and more dismounted. There, waiting on the quay, stood Sir Baelor Hightower and his younger brother, Sir Garth Greysteel, only a year Mors's junior. Mors remembered him faintly from the old courtship tour, though they had barely exchanged more than a few words. Baelor stepped forward with a soldier's salute, clasping forearms with Mors. Prince Mors, you honor us with your visit. Our Lord Father was glad to hear of your coming. I present my brother, Sir Garth. We are here to receive you, your lady wife, and Malara. Welcome back. Malara skipped past Mors and Ashura, arms swinging. Baelor, Garth. Playing at Lords, are we? Especially you, Garth, still pretending you're Uncle Gerald the White Bull, or the Dragon Knight himself. Though I doubt you'd give up the courtesan houses to do it. Garth went crimson, clapping a hand over her mouth before she could go on. He turned awkwardly toward Mors, stammering, Prince Mors, your reputation precedes you. He paused, visibly struggling to contain his embarrassment, while everyone else tried not to laugh. Let us proceed to the high tower. Our father awaits. Princess Ashura. Ashura dipped into a graceful curtsy, still hiding a smile. Sir Baelor. Sir Garth. Carriages carried them through Old Town to the high tower itself, that vast spire rising impossibly high above land and sea. Leighton Hightower was waiting outside with his steward. After the formal breaking of bread and salt, they climbed to the Lord's solar higher and higher until the sea was no more than a haze below. The chamber was dim but warm, shutters drawn against the ocean wind. Tapers cast a golden glow as Lord Leighton seated himself. His heirs flanked him, Baelor, steady with a bright smile, and Garth, trying to look composed after Malara's earlier jab. Mors entered with Ashura at his side. Sir Jeremy Norwich followed, while Sir Karen Toland remained outside with the guards. Malara skipped ahead, humming to herself, before flopping backward into a chair with a dramatic thump. Prince Mors, Leighton greeted gravely, though his eyes softened. At last. We have much to speak of. Princess Ashura, welcome. Sir Jeremy. Malara, child, home again. See, Daddy. Malara twirled with arms outstretched. I told you I'd bring him. And I did. With Sister Ashura too wrapped up like a gift. She giggled, nearly toppling her chair. Ashura pressed her lips together to stifle a laugh. Mors only shook his head. Baelor muttered under his breath, "Seven save me, I didn't miss this." Garth seemed to also want to agree. But Leighton silenced them with a look. Soon the pleasantries faded. Leighton leaned forward, voice dropping. Prince Mors, you recall the letter I sent months ago, when Malara first came to you? I do, Mors said evenly. His eyes slid toward Malara, who was now balancing a candlestick on her head. And I've learned what you asked of me. She may appear eccentric, but she has true gifts. Actual magic. I'd be a fool to ignore them. Malara beamed. See, Daddy? He gets it. Leighton's expression darkened. Good. You understand her value. Her visions are rare, and seldom clear. But when it comes to you, Prince Mors, they are sharper, clear even. Enough that they unsettle even me. They point to a shadow coming for the realm. A threat so dire it may unmake us all. And our survival house high towers, Dornes, the realms may rest on you. Malara clapped. Daddy, tell him the fun part. Leighton gave a long sigh, then allowed himself a dry smile. Since you are Dornish, I suppose I might say you could take her as a concubine, if you wished. I would not object. Even the other lords wouldn't cause us trouble considering how strong the faith of the Seven is in the Reach, thanks in great part to her, reputation. But, that's just my wish as a father, she can help you tremendously in what is to come and being with you would be our blessing. Ashura arched a brow. Malara winked at Mors. Told you, didn't I? Mors's eyes widened. Lord Leighton had hinted at such things in his letters, but hearing it spoken so openly left no doubt, leaving him speechless. Jeremy, sensing the awkward silence, cleared his throat, bringing the conversation back. These shadows you speak of, Lord Leighton, they don't bode well. Could this all tie back to King Aerys? Breaking tradition by shattering Sir Baelor's betrothal to Princess Elia was reckless enough. To dress it up as a reward for Prince Mors, it felt like a whim. I have known the king many years, but he is no longer the man he was. He is slipping. He stopped himself, unwilling to finish the thought. Mors did it for him. Into madness. Ashura's voice cut in, sharp with anger. It was cruelty none of us expected. Elia deserves far better than to be dragged into such games. Baelor's jaw tightened. And I will not forget the insult. Garth ground his teeth. If it were mine to decide, I'd lead our banners now and... Enough, Leighton cut in, steel sharpening his tone. The realm rots. This new master of whisperers, Varys, is more dangerous than we assumed. He whispers in the king's ear, and Aerys now sees traitors in every shadow. It began with Lady Cyrilla of Myr, Dennis Darkland's wife. He burned her alive. Since then, fire has become his answer to everything. Small folk, servants, even knights branded as treacherous, all consigned to the flames. How long before it is his counselors? His lords? He fell into a grim silence, then spoke again, voice low. There is a saying about the Targaryens. They say it was King Jaehaerys himself who first spoke it. Madness and greatness are two sides of the same coin. Every time a Targaryen is born, the gods toss it, and the world holds its breath. No offense, Prince Mors. You bear the name Martell, but your blood is no less theirs. None taken, Mors replied with a thin smile. I have eyes, my lord. I see the same shadows you do. Silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable, until Malara toppled right out of her chair with a thud. Ha, what? Lemon cake, she blurted, blinking as she rubbed her backside with one hand and stretched with the other. Did someone say lemon cake? The others could only watch in a mix of exasperation and disbelief. After shaking his head, Lord Leighton revealed what none had expected. Old Town has not been idle. We command hidden strength 10,000 elite, trained and equipped, ready to answer my call. Not counting levies. Riches gathered over generations. When the time comes, they will be unleashed. Malara cackled, clapping like a girl at a mummer's show. Surprise! Leighton only smiled, proud to see his daughter delight in his performance. Ashura's brow furrowed. Lord Leighton, you sit in Old Town, in the very heart of the citadel. They've already tried to kill Mors once, and they'll try again. If they learn you're allying with him, won't that put all of this at risk? Leighton's expression hardened. I know. The citadel has long worked to snuff out magic, helped kill the dragons, plotted against any spark of the arcane. My forebears aligned with them. I do not. Since Malara's birth, I've chosen another path. I won't sacrifice my daughter to their greater good. He leaned closer. I've learned that they gather strength again. But I'll strike first. I have allies even among them. Archmaester Walgrave, father to Wales, Maester at Winterfell, is my confidant. Keep that secret. No one must know. Malara clapped again. Isn't Daddy clever? He'll burn them all away, and we'll be free. Her cheerful cruelty made Mors grimace. Ashura shot him a knowing glance. Baelor sighed, but Garth actually smiled with pride. Leighton folded his hands. We will help you, Prince Mors. Ships, soldiers, gold. Old Town will be ready when the storm breaks. All I ask is that you be ready as well. He hesitated, a rare crack in his composure. The trouble is, we don't yet know what form that storm will take. Do you? Mors hesitated, then spoke carefully. There are storms coming. A smaller one soon, no less dangerous. But the true war, the fight for our lives, may be decades away. Leighton exhaled, relief softening his stern features. Good. Then we have time to prepare. And when it comes, we will be ready. Mors inclined his head. As will we. They spent a week in Old Town as guests of Lord Leighton Hightower. During that time, Mors and Ashura were introduced to the other Hightower daughters. Yet it was quickly clear they did not look kindly upon Malara, whose quirks drew scorn rather than patience. For Mors and Ashura, that was enough to turn their attention elsewhere. How could anyone look down on that sweet roll of a girl? Mors sparred with both Baelor and Garth first separately, then together. His skill left them astonished. At last, Garth's skepticism broke into outright admiration. Dropping to one knee, he declared Mors reincarnated from the Age of Heroes, the warrior reborn, and offered himself as sworn shield. Mors blinked awkwardly at Baelor, uncertain how to respond. After a long sigh, Baelor gave a small nod. Mors accepted, and so his retinue grew once more. Their week was eventful. They visited the Citadel, the Starry September, and the guild halls. Trade agreements were negotiated with the Hightowers and with House Redwyne through a representative. But just as their departure neared, a surprise awaited. On their final day, a steward arrived with a message. Prince Mors, Lord Leighton requests your presence in his solar. At your earliest convenience, of course. I'm free now, Mors replied at once. Lead the way. The solar was warm with candlelight, and within stood a wet nurse cradling a baby with golden curls and striking blue eyes. Mors's brow furrowed in confusion as he turned to Leighton. My lord, we were preparing to depart. I hadn't expected your summons. Has something happened? Leighton's smile was tight. He glanced at the wet nurse, then back to Mors. You could say so. This is Lamore, a servant of our house. She holds little Tyene who, we believe, is Oberyn's daughter. Mors's eyes widened. He stepped closer, studying the babe. My niece. His voice carried disbelief. The child's pale coloring and golden hair gave him pause. Are you certain? Leighton joined him beside the wet nurse. I know what you see, but yes. We confirmed it before telling you. Oberyn, seduced a septa. Drinks were involved from my understanding. She refused to leave her vows, yet after learning you were here, she came to the Hightower with her child. Tyene was born in the middle of last year, nearly 1 now. Mors looked down at the babe, reaching out with his aura. At once he felt the familiar tug, the same thread that tied him to his blood. She was kin, there was no mistaking it. His expression softened, and he carefully took Tyene into his arms. Thank you, Lord Leighton. This is no small matter. I'll see she reaches Sun's pair and meets the rest of our family. Oberyn, well, he may be many things, but he is mad for his kin. He'll be overjoyed. His smile was warm as he gently brushed a finger over Tyene's curls. He looked to the wet nurse. And thank you, my lady, for caring for her. Flustered, the woman shook her head. No need, my lord. I'm no lady and it's my duty. Mors inclined his head, then glanced back at Leighton. Could you please ensure that the mother is taken care of? If you'll excuse me, it's time little Tyene met Ashura and the rest. Will you be at the docks to see us off? Leighton allowed a small laugh, his mood easing. Of course. I must bid farewell to you, Princess Ashura, Malara, and now even Garth. It seems the Martells are determined to carry off all my family. Mors grinned. It's our pleasure to have them. After presenting little Tyene San to Ashura and Malara, both were delighted to dote on her. Lamore stayed close as wet nurse, ensuring the babe was well fed. As Ashura played with baby Tynese, she gave Mors a hungry look that made him shiver. Malara, never one to hold her tongue, chimed in brightly, Morsi, you should put one in my belly too. Then we'd have more little ones to play with in Sunfort. Mors's smile went stiff. Between Ashura's burning eyes and Malara's teasing, he felt cornered. Thankfully, Sir Garth stepped in. Malara, enough of your nonsense. Tone it down until we're gone, you'll have all of Old Town thinking you're in heat. Malara's eyes lit with mischief. Oh? Are you jealous? Afraid I'll have a babe with Morsi while you only watch from afar. Garth's face twitched. What are you babbling about? I'm straight. You're the one who says I'm always at the courtesan houses. Where is this coming from? Malara clapped her hands, eyes twinkling. So you admit it. Always in the courtesan houses, ha? Can't find a girl without paying for her. Mors thought he saw steam rising from Garth's head. You get back here. Cackling, Malara darted off with Garth in hot pursuit. Ashura, still rocking Tyene, smiled in quiet amusement. They're such good brothers. I miss mine. And little Alyria. Could we stop at Starfall on our way back? Mors slipped an arm around her waist. Of course, my moon and stars. Together they watched, smiling, as Malara's laughter echoed through the hall and Garth chased after her. Chapter 48, Chapter XLIV, The Storm That Looms. Early 279 AC, Great September of Baelor, King's Landing. The sun glinted off the domed marble of the Great September of Baelor and its 7 slender crystal towers, each one sparkling like a prism in the morning light. Below, rows upon rows of people crowded the square, gathered to witness the marriage of the Crown Prince of the Iron Throne, the Silver Prince, Rhaegar Targaryen, and the Flower of Dorne, Princess Elia Martell. The bride and groom stood in splendor. Rhaegar was clad in black and crimson silk, his chest emblazoned with the 3-headed dragon of his house, a silver circlet resting upon his pale hair. Elia wore flowing robes of Martell colors, sunset orange and deep red, stitched with threads of gold, her dark eyes radiant, her smile resplendent and proud. Together they looked every inch the union of fire and sun. People craned their necks for a glimpse of the honored pair. Lords and ladies from every corner of the realm had come, Lord Jon Arryn, Lord Robert Baratheon, young Eddard Stark, and Sir Elbert Arryn among them. Yet one absence overshadowed the grandeur. King Aerys and Queen Rhaella were not in attendance. Aerys, fearing assassination, had refused to appear, naming instead his trusted advisor Prince Mors Targaryen to stand in his place, a great honor. For Elia, Prince Doran Martell stood as her house's witness. Despite the brilliance of the day, the air felt heavy for Mors, almost overcast. Even amid the splendor, a weight pressed against his chest. The vows, the cheers, the spectacle, most of all Rhaegar's smile which he directed his way, left him hollow, near sickened. Later that evening, the Red Keep. The nobles had been celebrating since midday. The Red Keep echoed with laughter, music, and the clatter of cups. There was feasting, dancing, and even a few drunken attempts at song. At one point, Rhaegar took up his harp, drawing the attention of half the hall. Mors tried to enjoy the evening in Ashura's company, dancing with her and drinking enough to dull his thoughts. She shone that night, her beauty was such that many lords could not help but stare. Though Mors's reputation was enough to make wandering eyes quickly look away. Doran approached with Melario on his arm, smiling warmly. Mors returned it, though it never touched his eyes. Oberyn soon joined them, Cyrenaico at his side. Oberyn had brought young Maron Sand along to partake in the festivities of his aunt, though by this hour he was asleep in a servant's care. Princess Ashura, Mors, Doran began. Elia looked beautiful, didn't she? Mors wanted to say many things but only sighed. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. I see Uncle Luwin has begun his new role as her sworn shield. They all glanced toward the high table. Elia laughed among the ladies of court while Prince Luwin Martell stood close behind her, armored and stern. Rhaegar had suggested he take the white cloak, but after long talks with Mors, Luwin had refused. Instead, he swore himself only to Elia, with no vows or lords to stand in the way of her safety. Rhaegar had not liked it, though only Mors noticed the flicker of distaste before the crown prince happily agreed. Now, Elia was ringed by Luwin's guards, spears of the sun, and loyal companions, among them Alyssa Euler, her constant shadow. Oberyn leaned back with a sly grin. Oh, I heard something interesting, Mors. There may be another grand tourney on the horizon. Nothing certain yet, but they say it could rival, even outshine, Lord Tywin's spectacle at Lanny Sport. So tell me, brother, ready to win your champion's crown back?" Doran's brow lifted, curiosity piqued. Mors smiled faintly. "Finally. All we need is a date. Do you know who's hosting it and when?" "Oberyn." Oberyn scratched at his jaw. "That's the odd part. Supposedly Lord went, but does he even have the gold for something like this? From my understanding, Harrenhal's a money pit. They should barely have the coin to keep the place standing, let alone fund something like this. Something doesn't add up. No date yet, but I'd wager it will be within the next year or two." Mors and Doran exchanged a look, the same thought crossing both their minds. Oberyn might be a hothead, but a fool he was not. As they spoke, Lord Jonnaran approached with his nephew Sir Elbert. "Good evening, my princes, princess, my ladies," Jon greeted. "Lord Arryn," they replied politely. Jon gave a grave nod. "Forgive the interruption. I wished to speak on my foster son's behalf. Robert still reels from his parents' deaths. In his grief, he has spoken out, unjustly. He does not truly believe his words against Dorne and the Stepstones, but he is not yet himself. I ask you please, do not take it to heart." "Of course," Doran said gently. "We know grief and the rashness it brings. Our grudges are for true enemies, not mourning sons. In truth, generations of Martells dealing with Baratheons have shown us we share the same fire of temper. We understand it well enough." Mors glanced toward Robert, who was drinking heavily, pawing at a maid before Eddard Stark pulled him away. From the look of him, apology was not his intent. "I understand, Lord Arryn," Mors said. "So long as it ends here, there need be no animosity." Jon gave a weary smile and gestured to his nephew. "This is my heir, Sir Elbert Arryn. He's near your age, it would do you all well to be acquainted." They exchanged courtesies, though Oberyn's patience was thin. His voice rose, sharp and cutting. "Lord Arryn, Sir Elbert, I hear your words. But should Robert not be the one speaking them? He barred my brothers from Steffon Baratheon's funeral, denying them the right to mourn a lord of the realm. And as if that insult weren't enough, he has publicly cursed my younger brother. Why should we be silent while he spits on us?" "Oberyn!" Doran cut him off sharply. Lords nearby turned at the rising tension. Jon looked pained, Elbert uneasy. Before more could be said, Robert's voice thundered across the hall. "You bastards! Dornish whores! I'll gut you all! Come, silver-haired dragon, fight me if you dare! I'll kill you! I'll kill you all! Let me go, Ned!" Eddard tried to restrain him, but Robert tore free, shouting incoherently. Oberyn smirked at Jon. "So this is your apology? He's sorry, I sorry he can't strike Mors down right here." Jon's face fell. "Forgive us. We will take him away before worse comes of it. Elbert, my boy, come." After Jonnaran left, Mors and Doran turned to Oberyn with the same look. Oberyn looked uncomfortable. "What?" "It's the truth." Mors said evenly, "I agree with you, brother, but..." His gaze shifted toward the high table. "Fortunately, it seems Rhaegar and Elia slipped out earlier. Despite my thoughts on everything, this is still Elia's night, let's not turn it into a spectacle at her expense." Oberyn's shoulders eased, and he gave a reluctant nod, like a chastised child. Just then, a commotion broke out near Jonnaran's company. "Out of the way!" Robert Baratheon roared, driving a right hook into Elbert and felling him with a single blow. Then he charged at Mors with the fury of a bull, bellowing, "Ours is the fury!" As Robert rushed towards him, Mors turned to Ashura and his brothers. "Step back! I'll handle this!" "Ah!" Robert roared, charging. Mors sidestepped with cold precision, caught him by the arm, and brought him crashing down with a clean throw. One sharp punch to the jaw and Robert lay still. Rising smoothly, Mors dusted off his sleeve. It's over. Please, continue, he said calmly to the hall, then glanced at Jon and the others. Best get him to bed. He won't wake soon. Albert, now sporting a swollen eye from Robert's earlier swing, looked comically disheveled. Jon and Ned exchanged wary looks, both startled by how effortlessly Mors had felled the Storm Lord. Robert was already 6 feet 5 inches, 196 centimeters, with over 250 pounds of pure muscle and mass. Ned spoke at last after a sigh. My lords, Prince Mors. Robert's conduct was shameful. Thank you for showing restraint, though well within your right for more. My brother Brandon once told me you were a man of honor, someone that deserves respect. Tonight proves him right. Know this: the North remembers both its grudges and its debts. He bowed his head, then helped Albert drag Robert from the hall, Jon following close behind. Oberyn laughed, clapping Mors on the back. 7 hells, brother, that was beautiful. I only wish he'd charged me instead. He turned to Cyrena with a wolfish grin. The dance floor misses me, my lady. Will you honor me? Cyrena arched a brow. Well, I suppose I must. If I don't, there's no telling what trouble you'll stir up. Oberyn's smirk widened as he offered her his arm. Ah, but you always seem to end up in that trouble with me, my lady. Perhaps tonight we'll find others willing to share in it. That couple there looks promising, shall we? Doran lingered, as though he wished to say more, but only managed, we should rejoin the lords. Brother, we'll speak later. Mors sighed before giving a small nod. Doran's lips curved in a faint smile, and he left at Melario's side. As she passed, Melario touched Mors's arm lightly. Enjoy the rest of the night, Mors. Your worries will still be waiting come tomorrow. Ashura leaned close, her smile sly. Quite an entertaining hour, Sonny. But will this cause trouble? Robert Baratheon is lord of the Stormlands. Mors's face hardened. Yes. He hasn't calmed in a year. This is a grudge now, one that may grow. If Robert were ever to sit the Iron Throne with this hatred in his heart, it would spell ill for Dorne and the Stepstones, Mors thought grimly. He forced a lighter tone, offering her his hand. Another dance, my lady. My lady. Ashura smirked. I'll have you know I'm a princess. But very well, you may indulge me. Just this once. The evening carried on dancing, drinking, and murmurs of tension between kingdoms. And beneath it all, Mors knew, more conversations would follow. 3 days later, King's Landing port. Since the wedding, the skies had been grey and heavy, fitting well with Mors's mood. Rhaegar and Elia had departed for Dragonstone the morning after their vows, though at least she had Prince Luwin and Alyssa by her side. Now, on the docks, the Stepstones contingent was preparing to depart, sailors finishing the last of the loading. Darrow approached, bowing his head. My prince, there is a man from the Red Keep here to see you. He says his name is Varys. Mors blinked in surprise. Varys? Let him come, Darrow. As Darrow left, Mors frowned. Why wait until now? What's he after? Moments later, Darrow returned, leading a cloaked figure. The man moved with soft, deliberate steps and spoke the moment he drew near. Ah, Prince Mors, he said smoothly. I'm so very glad I caught you before you sailed. You are not easy to find alone. Mors studied him, plump, bald, powdered, and perfumed, lavender cutting sharp through a swirl of other scents. Beneath the cloak he could just glimpse rich silks. Lord Varys, Mors said evenly. It's unexpected. You've had days to seek me out. What matter could only wait until now. Varys gave a small, sycophantic laugh. Oh, I am no lord, my prince. Merely an orphan from Pentos, lucky enough to find work. For a fleeting instant Mors felt something slip from him, a sharp sense of anger and malice when he said that, which was surprising considering Varys always felt neutral. He filed it away, masking his reaction. But as to business, Varys continued, lowering his voice and casting quick glances about. As His Majesty's most trusted servant, I thought it prudent to warn you. My little birds whisper of dangers. Whispers of plots, threats aimed at your life. I cannot yet say from where they come. Mors widened his eyes in feigned alarm. Dangers? Speak plainly. Varys inclined his head. Ah, yes, my little birds whisper of danger stirring in your direction. From where, I cannot yet say. But with all the noise of late, one begins to wonder. Mors tightened his brows at that. Is Varys trying to make me wary of Robert? You couldn't mean Robert Baratheon. He's a raging bull, you'd see him coming a league away. He hasn't the finesse for shadows and daggers. Varys, speak plainly. What do you know? Mors's gaze fixed on him, sharp and unyielding, like a dragon poised to strike. Varys flinched, taking half a step back. In that moment Mors caught something odd. His dark eyes, so carefully soft, seemed to hold the faintest flicker of violet. The eunuch quickly composed himself, hands folding together. My prince, forgive me. I cannot share all I know. But believe this, I want only the best for the realm. And there are players, shall we say, who would see you removed from the board. Be cautious and beware those who approach with smiles. He bowed, and before Mors could press further, the eunuch melted into the flow of the docks, vanishing down a narrow street. Mors remained still, frowning not at the warning, but at the truth he had felt in that slip of emotion. Smugness, he thinks he convinced me. Malice, he wants me gone. Happiness, his plans are unfolding. So Varys is no ally. He's a foe. Unfortunate. He exhaled slowly, then called, Sir Karen. Karen Toland strode over. My prince. Send a raven to Auraborne, Mors said, voice flat. Tell him to put men in pentos. Look for someone close to Varys, a merchant, maybe a magister. The name is Illyrio Mopedus, or something like it. Find out everything he can about him, and about Varys's past. Karen gave a curt nod. At once. As he left, Mors looked back toward the city, muttering, if they think I'll play as their pawn in this Game of Thrones, they're mistaken. Game of Thrones, a voice questioned behind him. Mors turned to find Ashura, bright-eyed in a sea blue gown. Never mind that. Did you need something? She smiled. Not really. I came to see if you'd play Sivas with me while we wait. He smirked. I thought we weren't playing anymore, after I cheated. You did cheat, she shot back, planting her hands on her hips. There was no way you could have won otherwise. Mors chuckled. All right then. Best 2 out of 3. Ashura caught his hand, tugging him toward the ship with a grin. Deal. Come on. Mors allowed himself a small smile as he followed. For a little while, at least, he could set Varys's shadows aside. 1 month later, Sunfort Training Yard, the Stepstones. It was late morning. The last few days had been cloudy, though shafts of sunlight broke through here and there. One such beam lit a ridiculous sight in the training yard. Sir Garth Hightower was trudging around with a weighted pack strapped to his back, soaked clothes caked in sand. Despite his prowess as a knight, training with the Spears of the Sun and Mors's Guard demanded new skills: stealth, endurance, Dornish martial techniques. Sir Daven Quar oversaw him, with Sir Karen Toland and Sir Jeremy Norwich rotating instruction. Here, Garth would earn the name Grey Steel anew. But today, he had an extra helper. Malara rode Vezar, Mors's black sand steed, trailing behind Garth and occasionally pelting him with pebbles. She sang merrily. Garth, Garthy, runs so fast. I fear his hair won't ever last. Spurs go jingle, reins pull tight. Still my brother flees in fright. A vein throbbed on Garth's brow. He finally snapped. 7 hells, Malara. I'm training. Go play with your candles or burn a raven, you wretch. He choked as sand got in his mouth. Cough, cough. Malara pulled up beside him, mock serious. No slacking off, recruit. 1,000 more laps, or you'll eat sand for supper. Still coughing, Garth glared. The cough 7 hells cough, just give me water. Malara held up a skin. Oh, this water? I drank it already. Silly me. Just, kill me, Garth wheezed. Davin finally intervened, shaking his head. All right, enough. Garth, drink. 10 more laps after your break. His eyes flicked at Malara with pointed emphasis on 10. Malara gasped. Only 10? Boring. Oh, I know. Her eyes lit up wickedly. Brother, if you finish 100 laps, I'll get you half off at Sister Cyrena's courtesan house. Both Garth and Davin froze. Garth shouted, nonsense. Do I look like that sort of man? He lowered his voice, glancing about. You're not joking, are you? Not like last time. Davin leaned closer too, pretending not to listen but clearly listening. Of course. Malara beamed. But only if you do 200. 200? You said 100. Garth fumed. At that moment, Mors and Ashura walked into the yard after their own training. Ashura giggled, Mors sighed and face-palmed, his hand staying there longer than usual. Malara spotted them first. Sister Ashura. She dismounted and ran to hug her. Ashura, eyes gleaming, embraced her back. Quite lively this morning. Now, what was that about courtesan houses and 300 laps? Garth went red. It was 100. I mean none at all. Excuse me. He bolted off. Davin gave a stiff nod. My prince. My princess. Then hurried after him, absolutely not fleeing Ashura's smirk. Vezar nudged Mors. He stroked the horse's mane. Tired of being cooped up? Want another run in the Dornish sands? The steed pranced in a circle as if answering yes. Next month, then, Mors said with a smile. He turned to Ashura and Malara. We could spend some time at the water gardens. It'll do us good. Ashura's face lit up. A wonderful idea, Mors. Malara hopped. Can I come? Can I come? Yes, Malara, Mors said with weary fondness. I'd be afraid to leave you here. No telling what you and Elia would get into. Malara flushed, smiling as though he'd praised her. That wasn't praise. Mors muttered under his breath, though a faint smile tugged at his lips. Ashura laughed openly and pulled Malara into a hug. That evening Lord Solar, Sunfort. Mors sat alone, reports spread before him. The Stepstone's performance had exceeded all expectations. Since Dorne began producing glass, toll revenues had surged, transforming both Dorne and the Stepstones into rising powers of wealth. A new glass foundry was already under construction on a strategically selected island south of Sunfort, an anchor for future industries. By design, Dorne would focus on fine, aesthetic glass, while the Stepstones would specialize in research and military applications. Wealth, however, brought enemies. Pirates had begun testing their defenses, but intelligence already traced the attacks back to Tyrosh and Lys. With Mors near ruin, those two cities had divided the spoils and were now scrambling to revive their own glass trade. Yet Dornish and Stepstone's growth continued to choke their ambitions. Enoch broke his thoughts. Enter, Mors called. Sir Jeremy Norwich stepped in with Maester Orwine, both wearing grim faces. A heaviness settled in Mors's chest. Oh no, what now? Jeremy, Orwine, he said, voice measured. Is something the matter? Jeremy glanced at Orwine before stepping forward with a letter in hand. I'm afraid so, my prince. Word from King's Landing. Mors's brows knit as he took the letter. King's Landing. He opened it and scanned the lines. His eyes widened, suddenly he was on his feet. What? No, this doesn't make sense. This isn't right. Jeremy and Orwine exchanged a look at his outburst, but held their tongues. Jeremy cleared his throat. Yes, my prince. Shocking indeed. The king has imprisoned Lord Jonaran and now demands the traitor Robert Baratheon surrender. The charge is threatening to kill princes of the Iron Throne. It isn't specified which prince, but the only one he threatened publicly was you. Mors froze, staring at the parchment as if it might change. This is all wrong. Where is Harrenhal? Where is Lyanna and Rhaegar? Have I shifted things this far? He sank back into his chair, silent for a long while. Jeremy and Orwine waited, uneasy. At last, Mors raised his head, eyes sharp with resolve. Lord Hand Jeremy. Jeremy straightened at the formal address. At your orders, my prince. Quietly prepare the troops. We move to a state of war readiness. No one must know. But if I'm right, war is coming. Jeremy's eyes widened, then he bowed. It will be done, my prince. Mors continued, voice hardening, inform Sienna and Auraborne. Eliminate the marked spies and double down on uncovering others nothing can leak. Mors turned to the maester. Orwine, send a coded raven to Dorne. Tell him the same he must ready Dorne. At once, my prince, Orwine said, already turning for the door. When they had gone, Mors sat alone again. His jaw tightened, his voice low. And I need to get Elia back. Chapter 49, Chapter XLV, When the Storm Breaks. It had been 2 months since Jonaran was seized on the orders of King Aerys, and in that short time the realm had shifted with every new turn of the wheel, each event heavier than the last. Jonaran had surrendered himself peacefully, hoping to ease tensions and mediate the misunderstanding born of Robert Baratheon's rash words. He believed naively that as Lord of the Eyrie and head of one of the great houses of Westeros, his authority and dignity would keep matters from escalating. He was wrong. Despite sharp protests from the small council, and even Lord Tywin's open opposition, King Aerys commanded Jon's imprisonment. At once he sent word for Robert's arrest, who was still hiding somewhere in King's Landing, threatening that if the stag proved defiant and didn't surrender for punishment, his closest friends, allies, and kin would be seized in turn. What followed burned itself into memory. Eldred Arryn, Eddard Stark, and Robert himself, accompanied by the small retinue that had escorted them to Prince Rhaegar's wedding, fought their way out of King's Landing. In a desperate clash they carved through the city guard and even bested Sir Jonothor Darry of the King's Guard, leaving him bloodied. They escaped in secret aboard a fishing vessel out through the Blackwater Bay. Yet their flight was short-lived. A patrol sighted them, and soon the royal fleet closed in, Sir Barristan Selmy and Lord Lucerys Velaryon at its head. Surrounded, they fought aboard the fishing boat until the small craft was shattered beneath them. In the struggle, Eddard Stark and Sir Eldred Arryn were defeated and taken, both sorely wounded. Robert Baratheon, bloodied and battered, was struck overboard into the sea. The king's men scoured the waters for his body, but none was ever found. With Jon, Elbert, and Eddard in chains, despite the protest from their respective kingdoms, no other action followed. For a time, tension smoldered more than it flared. But everyone knew the embers could burst into flame at any moment. In the north, Lord Rickard Stark was said to have ordered his men to readiness, vowing to call his banners at the first spark. In the Vale, Sir Denys Arryn closed the bloody gate and mustered his standing host, pressing for diplomacy even while preparing for war. The Stormlands, at the eye of the storm, seethed with division because of their young, brash lord. On one side houses Connington, Cafferan, Grandison, Fell, Buckler, and Wild branded Robert Baratheon a traitor and bent toward the crown. On the other houses Estermont, Tarth, Penrose, Cairn and Swan urged restraint, dialogue, and loyalty to their liege lord. Between them, lesser houses kept their silence, waiting to see which way the tide would turn. When word spread that Robert Baratheon had vanished, seemingly perished at sea, tempers began to cool. With Tywin Lannister guiding the council, diplomacy seemed to gain ground. In King's Landing, King Aerys declared Robert's death the judgment of the gods and the price of defying the dragons. The small council pressed for mercy, winning lighter sentences, brief imprisonment for Jon Arryn and the young heirs, followed by a public show of submission from Lord Jon Arryn, Lord Rickard Stark, and Lord Stannis Baratheon, while young Renly Baratheon would be taken as a hostage to soothe the king's pride. For a moment, it seemed the realm might settle. All was well. Until Robert Baratheon returned. With scarcely 100 men at his back, he rode out of the Kingswood, fighting through royal patrols on the Crownlands border to the Stormlands, before making his way to Storm's End. His survival became a tale in itself. Thrown from his ship into Blackwater Bay, his body washed ashore near the Windwater Lake. There he was taken prisoner by the Kingswood Brotherhood, a growing band of outlaws, smallfolk and hedge knights of dubious repute led by Simon Toyne and infamous for their raids. Robert spent weeks among them while they tended his wounds. Somehow, through wit and charisma, with some occasional fights in between, he, Toyne and his merry band, forged a strange bond, near to blood brotherhood. By the time he left their company, the brotherhood had been swayed to his cause, ready to turn their blades against the tyranny of King Aerys. With their aid, Robert reached Storm's End alive. Once there, he wasted no time. Ravens flew across Westeros, decrying the king's injustice and calling for support. More letters went north and to the Vale, asking to demand the release of Jon Arryn, Elbert Arryn, and Eddard Stark. At the same time Robert summoned his bannermen, declaring that if the crown refused to release his brothers and foster father, the realm itself would fracture upon the consequences. Mid-279 AC The Water Gardens, Dorne. Children's laughter drifted across the water gardens, mingling with the splash of fountains and the shimmer of sunlight on water. Rainbows danced in the mist, giving the palace its dreamlike beauty. At one of the pools, Ashura, Melario, Cyrena, Malara, and Jane Fowler Manfredi's wife played with baby Arianne. Ashura lingered near Melario more often now, ever since she had quietly revealed she was 3 moons with child. It should have been a time of joy. Mors had come to the water gardens under the pretense of rest to spend time with his kin, to let Vezar run the sands under Malara's hand, and place Ashura in a calming environment for her pregnancy. But all of them knew better. This was no holiday. This was the pause before the storm. Dorne's armies and fleets were primed, the stepstones secured, their war machine ready to ignite at the first spark. Mors, Oberyn, Doran, and Manfredi sat in a circle with cups of wine, their expressions grim. "So Robert has re-emerged," Mors said at last. "I never thought a stubborn fool like him would drown so easily, but to appear so suddenly, summoning his levies without hesitation, it means the time has come. I only worry about Elia." Oberyn nearly snarled, cutting him off. His eyes burned at Doran. 2 moons without a word? No message from her, from Uncle Lewin, from Alyssa, nothing. Something must have happened. Doran dropped his gaze, unwilling to meet his brother's eyes. Manfredi stared at the pools, feigning detachment, not wanting to accidentally incur their wrath by association. "Yes. No word," Mors said quietly. "Even with the glass candle, I cannot pierce Dragonstone and no Dornish guards stand there now. Something has happened," he went on. "But we know what must be done." At that, Oberyn leaned forward, Manfredi turned his head, and even Doran looked up. "We get her back," Oberyn said fiercely. "We get her back and break that sissy dragon in the process." Mors's mouth curved in a thin smile. "Something like that." Doran cut in, voice soft, but authoritative. "First we ensure Elia's safety. We need to proceed with caution and stealth. But if something did happen, there will be no mercy, but it must be swift, and it must be precise. Mors nodded, his eyes hardening. It will be. Leave it to me. The others felt a measure of relief at that. If Mors took the lead, there was little cause to doubt. Let me come, Oberyn pressed, a sharp edge in his voice. I've been waiting for a piece of rigor. Mors hesitated, then shook his head. Not this time, brother. You're needed here. Oberyn's shoulders sank, but he gave a curt nod. Dorne, by contrast, looked quietly relieved. War is coming, Mors said at last, shifting the weight of the talk. The only question is what part we will play. He looked at each of them in turn. So are we ready? Dorne nodded. We are. We quietly mobilized our men since 2 months ago. 6,000 standing right now. 20,000 total men can be fielded at once, with another 10,000 for garrison, of which 5,000 could march if pressed. We have 150 warships. Mors replied, I command 7,500 field troops that are always ready, and 2,500 for garrison. We also have 225 warship, with more still in development, constantly patrolling the stepstones. He exhaled. That gives us at least 30,000 men on the higher side of what most kingdoms can field, though still less than the reach. Our advantage is readiness. While others will spend moons raising levies, our troops are already trained, armed, and in position. If we defend Dorne, no host can break us. Formidable, yes, but it depends on the foe, and how we choose to use them. The others nodded in silence. Compared to the great hosts of Westeros, Dorne was still outnumbered. Our fleets, however, Mors added, outmatch any other kingdom. At sea, we hold the advantage. But in war, we may face more than one enemy at once, losing this advantage. I believe our best move is neutrality, Dorne said carefully. Delay. Let the factions reveal themselves before we commit. Oberyn slammed his cup down. We could have done that if Elia wasn't chained to the Dragon Prince. Do you truly think we can stand aside now? Do you think it will be allowed of us? Manfredi spoke hesitantly, then turned to Mors. And you? Can you stay neutral, cousin? You are the king's favored advisor, his kin. The great lord the king raised himself. Can you hold back? Mors's face hardened. No. But that does not mean I must commit everything. I will return to King's Landing, advise Aerys, and find out what has happened to Elia. Or I might just head straight to Dragonstone. Once I return to Sunford I will decide. Regardless, it will be dangerous. Oberyn gave a crooked smirk. Dangerous? Perhaps for them. That drew the faintest smile from Mors. Then he looked at Dorne. Now tell us what we face. The kingdoms. Their numbers. Their likely friends. Dorne welcomed the shift in subject. First, the royal faction. The crownlands can raise 15,000. The reach is vast. Under a strong lord they could muster up to 100,000 troops, with 60 or 70,000 being average, but under Mace Tyrell, perhaps 45. Still formidable, but more manageable. Too many flowers, Oberyn scoffed. I doubt they'll stand when pressed. Even flowers have thorns, Oberyn, Mors countered. Jeremy says their men are well trained, only lacking the will to excel. A war can change that. Under the right command, they could be deadly. Dorne went on. The Westerlands may prove less certain in this faction. Since Tywin rules in truth, not King Aerys, he may remain aligned to the throne, but that depends on him not getting tired of the king. They can field 25,000, and their coffers might buy another 5 to 10,000 sellswords. That puts the royalist tally near 90,000, Oberyn said, without counting splinters. Dorne leaned forward. Now let's call them the opposition faction. The Stormlands can muster 20,000. The North, if it joins, brings 30,000 hard men who fight to the death with Eddard Stark captive. I'm not sure of their stance. The Vale could add 15 to 20,000, though with Jon and Elbert captive, they may hesitate. The Riverlands could be swayed through the Starks. Catelyn Tully's betrothal ties them close. That would add another 20,000. Altogether, near 90,000. Mors weighed the numbers, his expression darkening. That's evenly matched. In the end, it won't be strength alone. Initiative and opportunity will decide the outcome. Doran nodded. And then the so-called neutral powers, Dorne, the Stepstones, and the Iron Islands. 30,000 from us, another 15 to 20,000 reavers from Pike if they rise. 50,000, give or take. But Lord Quellan Greyjoy is a wild card. The wisest Greyjoy to sit the Seastone chair, though that's like saying the kindest scorpion in the desert. He has kept to loyalty, forsaking their old ways, but his sons are another matter entirely. The numbers hung heavy in the air. That's a lot, Manfredi said quietly. Could it truly come to war across all of Westeros? The others turned to Mors. He met their eyes and gave a grave nod. Make no mistake. Whether sparked by Aerys and Robert now or by something else later, this will engulf us all. They all looked troubled. Mors set his cup aside. Then our course is clear. We take a defensive posture first. The Stoneway and the Prince's Pass must be reinforced with standing armies, ready to march at a moment's call. Our ships must patrol Dorne's coasts and the Stepstones without pause, intercepting raids or sudden landings before they strike home. But the greater danger may not come from Westeros at all. We must guard against Essos, Lys and Tyrosh most of all. They may see this chaos as a chance to cripple us, to strike at our glassworks and choke our trade. My fleet can watch for them now, but if they move, we must be ready to strike back hard, and without delay. Doran inclined his head. Agreed. We will be ready. Manfredi, you will take a third of our standing host and hold the Stoneway. No Stormlander may pass. Split the Spears of the Sun into 3 contingents, one with you, one with your father-in-law Franklin Fowler, and one with me. Manfredi rose and saluted formally. Yes, my prince. Consider it done. Oberyn leaned forward, a sly grin tugging at his mouth. And me, brother? What about me? Doran studied him a moment, then murmured aloud, half to himself, yes, what about you? Mors cut in. Let Oberyn take temporary command of the spears while Manfredi reinforces the Stoneway. It makes sense. Manfredi will be occupied. Oberyn's grin was fierce. With pleasure. Doran's face sobered. Oberyn, you understand the danger, and the responsibility. If you take this post, you must command as Luwin himself would, with discipline and care. Oberyn's smile faded into a steady nod. I know. I will not put Dorne in peril. Good, Doran said. Then we split the spears, half to operate with Manfredi and Lord Franklin, the other half under Oberyn's command. Move quickly, the sooner these dispositions are in place, the safer our coast and passes will be. With the plan settled, Mors rose, drained the last of his wine, and set the cup aside. Then I should prepare to leave for Sunfort. There's much to be done. Still, it was good to sit together like this, as we once did. Who knows when we'll have the chance again? When this is all over, let's share another cup. He ended with a bright smile, warmth in his eyes as he looked at his brothers and cousin. Oberyn, Doran, and Manfredi rose with him. They agreed quietly. We should. And with that, they left to put their plans in motion. 1 week later, Lord Solar, Sunfort, the Stepstones. Mors had just arrived today. He stood at the patio doors of his Solar, looking out towards the lively Sunfort town, while his 2 Master of Whisperers, Aradon Sand and Sienna, reported to him. And we have followed Illyrio Mopedus's steps for the last 3 months, Aradon said. Though a successful merchant, his growth in the past year has far outstripped anything he achieved in the decade before. Most of his successes are tied to Westeros in one way or another. My conclusion is that he receives help most likely from Varys. Mors nodded. That makes sense. So he profits directly from his connection to the Iron Throne through Varys. What of their past? Not much, Auraborne admitted. It is difficult to dig too deeply without alerting him. We know he formed a friendship when Varys arrived in Pentos from Lys around 260 AC. It seems he was already a eunuch by then. They worked together for years, dealing in shadows, building Illyrio's wealth and influence. Varys even helped him arrange a marriage to a cousin of the Prince of Pentos, a magister's daughter, with whom he had a son. Both wife and child were killed in rival attack about 10 years ago. Those rivals were wiped out soon after, their holdings divided between the Magister and Illyrio, further cementing his position. Auraborne paused to clear his throat before continuing. Last year, before Varys came to Westeros, Illyrio remarried a Lyseni pillow house girl named Sarah, an Eastern Valyrian beauty, with pale golden hair streaked with silver and striking blue eyes. Illyrio is utterly besotted with her. The Prince of Pentos disapproved and barred Illyrio from the palace, but strangely, Illyrio seemed unconcerned, as though it mattered little. Mors turned and walked to his desk and sat, brows knit. Strange indeed. To lose the prince's favor should cripple him, yet he shrugs it off. Two possibilities: first, he truly loves Sarah and placed her above ambition. Perhaps. But more likely, they have already achieved their real aim. Auraborne and Sienna exchanged startled looks at his conclusion. My prince, Auraborne said slowly, you think Varys came to Westeros because they were ready for the next part of their plan? Sienna gasped. I just remembered rumors spread last year of a brilliant spy master in Essos. The talk began right after the Duskendale rebellion. The two glanced at each other, unsettled. Mors nodded. It's a leap, but it holds. His eyes widened suddenly. He turned sharply to Auraborne. What of Sarah? How was her connection to Varys? Did they know each other in Lys? Auraborne shook his head with regret. We did not consider that. We will need to send men to Lys. Shall I proceed? Yes, Mors said firmly. I have a thought about those two. Investigate at once and bring me word. You've done well so far. Also find out where Illyrio keeps his most prized possessions. There may be something worth taking. It will be done, my prince, Auraborne replied. Good. Mors shifted his gaze to Sienna. How goes the hunt for spies in our lands? If you need my aid, say so. Of course, my prince, she said with a graceful nod. I have almost. A heavy knock cut her off. Ashura's voice came through the door. Mors, may we come in? Mors smiled at the sound, though the formality struck him as strange. Of course, Ashura. Enter. Ashura stepped in with Sir Jeremy Norwich and Maester Orwine, their faces grave. Mors frowned. What is it? King Aerys has burned Elbertorin alive, Ashura said, voice tight with worry. War has begun. Sienna gasped. Disbelief marred Mors's and Auraborne's faces. Mors rose and pulled Ashura into a steadying embrace. So it begins. Chapter 50, Chapter XLVI, Unchained Fury. Sir Elbertorin, nephew and heir apparent to Lord Jonaran, Lord Paramount of the Vale, was burned alive in the throne room of the Red Keep. After weeks of mistreatment, and with negotiations collapsing in the wake of Robert Baratheon's reappearance, Sir Elbert demanded trial by combat, a custom of the faith of the Seven long held among the Andals, especially by knights and highborn men, and one that cannot be lawfully denied when great lords sit in judgment. In such trials, accuser and accused place their fate in the hands of the gods. Elbert, a skilled knight of noble Aran blood, should have had a fair chance to prove his innocence. But Aerys chose fire as his champion. Elbert never had a chance. Jonaran, Eddard Stark, and the rest of the court stood witness as the king abandoned even the pretense of sanity. From that moment, a new name clung to him, first whispered, then shouted across the realm, the Mad King. The impact was immediate. Robert Baratheon, having already mustered 5,000 men, marched at once, scattering the 3,000 royal troops along the Crownland's Stormlands border. Barely 500 straggled back to King's Landing. In the Reach, Lord Mace Tyrell was the first to answer Aerys's call, dispatching 10,000 men under his cousin Sir Victor Tyrell's command with the support of Lord Randall Tarley, while reserving his own entrance for the head of a grander host more fitting his presence. Dissident Storm Lords added another 5,000 to the Crown's cause, while Robert's own bannermen rallied swiftly, swelling his force to 12,000. In the Vale, the Bloody Gate remains sealed, no word save that men are mustering. In the north, Lord Rickard Stark is said to be raising his banners despite Aerys's command to stand down. And in King's Landing, Prince Rhaegar has at last been summoned to court, to lead the royal host alongside Lord Tywin Lannister and put down the rebellious stag. The rest of the realm's lords quietly began mustering their troops as well, though to which banner they would march remained uncertain. Mid-279 AC, the Narrow Sea, approaching Dragonstone. 1 week later. Moonlight silvered Dragonstone's dark towers, giving the island a hollow, living shape. The glass candle had shown them nothing. Mors suspected the place was built with some old Valyrian art he did not understand, preventing him from seeing inside, but the little he did see worried him. He stood at the prow of the Eclipse, flanked by the men he trusted most, Sir Bedwyck Euler, Sir Idrin Coe, Sir Talor Sand, who had begged to join the mission despite having their own command, Sir Karen Toland, Sir Garth Hightower, Sir Jeremy Norwich, and the others. 30 men in all. Sir Daven Quar commanded the fleet, 5 heavy, 15 intermediate, and 30 light warships, 1,000 souls ready at sea. But they would wait for the signal before approaching. But the Eclipse was going alone under the cover of the night. This was reconnaissance and rescue mission for Princess Elia, for Prince Luwin, Lady Alyssa, for the Dornish host. In the worst case, it would be a declaration. Rhaegar took a good portion of the garrison to King's Landing, Mors said, eyes never leaving the stone shape on the horizon. But Elia was not among his hosts. Prince Luwin and Lady Alyssa have not been seen either. Tonight, one way or another, we find them. Depending on how this goes, we may well draw the Crown's full fury upon ourselves. Jeremy pressed a hand to Mors's shoulder. My prince, whether it's the Crown's fury or the stranger's blade, I will follow you until the end. Karen bowed his head. My life has been yours since you saved my life. Use it as you will. Garth's voice was simple. A knight follows the righteous path. I follow where you lead, Prince Mors. My sword's yours. Bedwyck spoke for the rest. If my sister is harmed, I will make them regret it. Mors nodded and fitted his mouth veil in place. He raised Solaris. Then let the realm see just how righteous the Dornish really are, while also imparting some stepstone justice. We begin by taking back my sister, uncle, and Alyssa. As planned, we split in 3, he said. The larger party, led by Sir Bedwyck, goes for the dungeons, the smaller stays behind as watch and guard, the other follow me ahead to the Lord's solar and private chambers. If anything goes wrong, fire your flares. Idrin made them, so be careful. Idrin's grin was bright in the lantern light. Night Dragonstone. The smaller vessel bumped rock and was hushed by hands and cloth. Dragonstone rose above them, carved dragons, jagged battlements, a dozen torch windows like patient eyes. Mors climbed the wet basalt with the ease of long practice, the others followed, keeping their breath shallow, stepping lightly to avoid making unnecessary noise and preventing them from slipping. They had selected this path away from the gatehouse to avoid unnecessary confrontations. With Rhaegar gone, patrols along the seaward wall were thin. A rope whispered over the battlements. One by one they slid into the fortress belly. The yard lay quiet. 2 guards by the well were pulled into shadow with quick, practiced moves. No alarm cried out. Mors said quietly, as we planned. Go. 7 men followed Mors as he slipped into Dragonstone, 16 went further down the belly of the castle, towards the dungeons. Fortunately, they timed their mission properly, and there weren't as many men. His fleet and men remained at a distance waiting for a signal to join the fray. Inside, Dragonstone smelled of smoke and salt. Vaulted halls arched above them, dragon-headed ribs swallowing sound. They moved slow, pressed to the stone, slipping into alcoves whenever feet clattered overhead. Half empty or not, half the castle was still an army. A spiral stair took them up toward the western tower. Voices a chamberlain dictating to a scribe faded, then the candles were snuffed as the men retired. Mors raised a fist as signal, they slipped through the carved black oak doors into the Lord's Solar. Maps were spread across a heavy table, a goblet cooled beside a discarded quill. Mors waited, then, when the corridor beyond the Solar fell empty, he led them on. The royal apartments lay beyond. 2 mailed men dozed in a corridor. Idrin and Talor moved like shadows, the guards dropped without a sound and were dragged where no one could find them. Mors signaled, and they moved to what they hoped was the final door. He placed his hand to the latch, met his friend's eyes, and pushed. The chamber beyond was chaos, scattered clothes, broken glass, and darkness lit only by a single, barely flickering candle. There was a big cage in a corner. Elia lay inside curled and filthy, a small, broken thing. She woke with a start, crawling to the farthest corner until she saw him. Tears came free from her eyes. Mors! Save me, she cried. Overwhelming rage surged in Mors. She was injured, her face a black bruise and her clothes torn. She looked smaller, as if the life had been squeezed from her. And she was with child. Elia, what happened? Are you with child? Why? He asked, hands already working at the cage. She wept and hissed with fury. Yes. His child. I should have listened to you. She looked at him, voice thin. You won't be able to open it. He has the key. Mors smirked, then winked at her. No key, then. Turn around. Don't look, I don't want you to accidentally get hurt. She turned, hope and fear braided on her face. He hefted, braced one leg against the cage's base, wrapped both hands about the iron, and drew. He unleashed his aura to give him strength, then pulled with all his strength and the lock gave with a thunderous snap. The door ripped free. Jeremy whistled. By the 7. I still cannot judge the distance of your strength. Elia stumbled out, looking weak and frilier than ever. Mors wrapped her in his arms and let her cry until her sobs shook loose and steadied. Where are Uncle Lewin and Alyssa? He asked at last. Elia's face went hard. Uncle Lewin, Alyssa, the guards, they should still be alive. Right after it was confirmed I was pregnant, Rhaegar changed. He started talking about needing another wife, one born of ice for another line. He stopped caring for me and kept saying you were false, that only he was the promised one. Honestly, the ravings that came out of his mouth made no sense. Uncle Lewin fell out with him, and Rhaegar ordered him beaten. When Arthur refused, they overwhelmed him too. They should all be in the dungeons. Mors was surprised at that. Arthur? He went against Rhaegar. Elia gave a faint smile. Arthur was always gentle with us. Even as Rhaegar changed, once it became clear we were in danger, he tried to help. But, that bastard John Connington. Her voice broke into fury. He threatened to kill me, that's how he went down so easily. After that, he would beat me and Alyssa in front of Arthur whenever he had the chance. As long as he spared my stomach, Rhaegar didn't care. She sobbed at the words. Mors's blood edged white-hot. We'll speak on that later. For now out. They silently retraced their tracks, trying to avoid any patrols. Suddenly they heard a loud burst that broke the quiet of the night. The signal, Mors said. They've been discovered, move. He slung Elia over his back. They cleared halls, cut down a loose patrol. As they neared a balcony overlooking the courtyard, they found Bedwick and his men pressed hard. Over 150 royal soldiers had them surrounded, and more were pouring in. Alyssa slumped with a knife in her hand, Lewin and Arthur lay senseless and bleeding. Mors halted, eyes sweeping. "Jeremy, take Elia to the eclipse. Signal Davin. Leave this to me." Garth and Jeremy protested, but Mors shook them off. "If you are not able to get away in time, signal for Davin to land with the army, find a defensive position and focus on shooting with bow and arrow. Do not come near. Trust me." He climbed over the balcony and looked down. Below, John Connington mocked the Dornish fighters. "Surrender now, and your bodies may remain intact after I kill you all," he taunted. "Honestly, I still don't understand why Rhaegar deemed you Dornish mongrels worthy of his divine blood." Alyssa snarled, "You sorry excuse for a man. Once Prince Mors gets his hands on you and that coward Rhaegar, you'll wish there were no body left of you." John sneered. "Prince Mors? A pretender, nothing but a cheap replica of Rhaegar. If he were before me now, he'd beg for mercy." He spat the last word. "Kill them." The men moved in, closing in for the kill. At that moment, a shadow fell with unbelievable speed. 2 men were crushed beneath the impact. Mors stepped off the 2 corpses he had just crushed, the floor beneath them had cracked. He walked forward with a casual smile, though his eyes spoke cruelty. Solaris rested across his shoulder. His smile was a slow, cocky curl of his mouth. "You speak my name so lightly," he said. "When did every street rat learn to address me so? I do not know you, and I do not care to. Today will be the anniversary of your death, let's dance." Alyssa covered her mouth with shaking fingers. "Mors." Tears pooled in her eyes. He closed the distance in a heartbeat. Solaris drove through Connington's throat and out the other side. Wide-eyed, Connington clawed at the shaft, the grip slipped and he slumped, finally still. Though dead, the corpse remained upright, held in place by the spear and Mors's strength. Mors looked at Connington's corpse with mock pity. Did he think he was the protagonist? With an elbow thrust Mors ripped Solaris free, then slashed out in a savage arc and 5 men folded under that one blade, their bodies collapsing into one another in a tangle of torn mail and scattered blood. The air filled with the sharp, coppery tang of it and the choking reek of smoke from the flasks igniting overhead. Flask fire bloomed like false daylight above them, hissing in the courtyard air. Arrows answered from the battlements, a stinging, deadly rain. Elia's remaining guard, gaunt, half-mad, desperate for breath and redemption, rallied at the sight of open battle. They grabbed crude weapons and lunged, faces white with hunger. Mors gave garrison men no quarter. He moved with vengeance and a kind of terrible, cold efficiency. Every strike found bone or throat, every blow counted. He vaulted from corpse to corpse, using broken men as steps to reach the next clutch of lungs, trampling a fallen guard to free his path, then springing, spear flashing. Mail split, leather ropes frayed, a man's head crumpled under the arc of Solaris and rolled like a broken wheel. Where his shadow fell, men collapsed. Screams became a form of symphony. Mors its composer and conductor. The courtyard beneath his boots soaked deeper and darker with every passing heartbeat. He did not think, he did not worry, he did not scheme, he unleashed and killed. His fury not yet abating. No more hiding, no more waiting. His thoughts flowed. And for the first time he let his aura truly loose. The air about him felt thicker, as if the world itself bent to his will, his muscles shot with strength beyond any mortal measure, heart and breath steady as a drumbeat. Each movement lengthened, became more monstrous in its force, and the men who met him were not merely struck, they were undone, as if the very gravity of the place had turned on them. The slaughter became a tide, inexorable and terrible. When the last man fell and the arrows stilled, Mors stood in a courtyard of bodies, Solaris dripping, chest heaving, the spearhead catching the moonlight like a small, merciless sun. It had only been 30 minutes, but an eerie silence fell over the courtyard. All eyes were on Mors. A disorganized wall of around 300 garrison men watched the 40 or 50 who remained near Mors, and the sight of him, blood on his face, Solaris across his shoulder, was enough. He walked slowly toward them, planted his spear, and the impact sent a deep boom that reverberated across the yard. He met their eyes with cold amusement. "It's unfortunate," he said. "It seems you are surrounded by me. Yield. Surrender now, and you will be prisoners of war. I'm not cruel, I will treat you well. Resist, and as you may have noticed, I am blessed by the seven, their champion if you will. Instead of the mother's embrace you will find the stranger's kiss." The captain, pale as bone, dropped his weapon. We surrender." One by one, the garrison followed. Mors replaced his spear on his shoulder and turned. At that moment men bearing Mors's standard sun and spear, on black background poured into the courtyard, 500 of their men, led by Sir Daven Quar. Mors only smiled. "No need to kill them. Take them prisoner. Search the castle, bring what we can back to Sunfort." "Yes, my prince," Jeremy said. Elia, who had refused to leave as instructed, ran to Mors and hugged him. Alyssa, close behind, hugged him too. Surprised, he felt them trembling and hugged them back. "You are safe. I'm here now," he said gently. This could be read as raising banners against the crown. "I'll need to speed things up." They set to work. The castle would be swept, the wounded tended, the prisoners bound. Then they left as quickly as possible, hoping no one saw them storm Dragonstone so they could remain unengaged for a while longer. But if they were seen, if the news broke out, they would be ready. "Enrigger will pay." Mid-late 279 AC. The Lord's Solar, Sunfort, the Stepstones. 1 week later. Mors Martell, Doran Martell, Lewin Martell, Jeremy Norwich, Arthur Dane, and Garth Hightower sat in silence. They had just returned from their mission last night and Mors had given a summary to Doran, who had arrived this morning. Tension hung in the air. Lewin and Arthur still looked weak from their imprisonment. Doran's jaw was tight, there was an unusual fierceness in his eyes. He rubbed his brow. "I'm just glad Oberyn isn't here to hear this." Mors looked at Doran, serious. "Worried he'd leap at you for pushing your ambitions on Elia? For risking everything? If we had time, I'd gladly take Oberyn's place in beating you bloody, but it's not worth it." He sighed. He glanced around the room, thinner Lewin with an eye patch from injury, a weary Arthur keeping Dawn by his side. It was lucky the sword remained on Dragonstone, otherwise it might have been lost. Mors went on. "As you all know, my actions, though driven by justified anger and duty to my sister, were practically a declaration of war. We haven't heard anything yet, but Rhaegar can put pieces together. In addition, in the 2 weeks I was gone the war has grown. Robert's forces are moving into the Riverlands with the last of his 10,000 men after engaging parts of the Reach/Crownlands/Stormlands host. The Vale has joined, the Westerlands have joined. My killing of John Connington may have pushed the Stormlands toward Robert. Without Connington to hold them, they will likely fall in behind him. Robert has a magnetic charisma in his own way. Soon all parties will be forced to call for a side." Silence filled the room, it hung there as they let the words settle. He turned to Arthur. "You said you had information." Arthur sighed and nodded. "I do. I will likely be charged with treason and named an oath-breaker if I'm not already. But I am a knight first, a King's Guard second. Rhaegar has been slipping into madness, though he masks it well. For some time now he has been obsessed with prophecy and Valyrian lore." Many in the room frowned. Arthur added, "He believes he is a prophesied hero, meant to save the realm from some great calamity." Garth and Jeremy looked to Mors. Mors nodded. Arthur added, "He was that way before Lannisport, but after he lost to Mors in the tourney he changed. He began to doubt, then to force the story. He tried to copy Prince Mors, his manner, his things, and that included Elia, even my sister, anything to get closer to that ideal image. There seemed to be two parts to the prophecy, one of ice and one of fire. Elia is the fire according to him. Rhaegar seeks his ice. He's always said a dragon must have 3 heads. Silence followed. Luwin spat, he's mad. Father and son, a pair of raving men. The realm would be better without them. He went back to nursing his headache. Doran said, this is useful, maybe. But what does it mean? What can we do about it? I see now that tying ourselves to the throne was a mistake, but... Mors cut in. What does that have to do with us? What's our next step? Doran nodded. He met their eyes. As crazy as Rhaegar may be, some of what he says is true, just not about him. That got everyone's attention. Doran blinked. You mean you believe this? Since when? Is that why you grew so solemn as a child? Why you changed? He looked at Mors, surprised. Mors nodded. I always felt something coming. When I began to dream it, I was convinced. He said, this war is not the whole reason I've prepared. We must stay whole for a truer threat. We can't let the realm weaken itself now. Doran sank back in his seat, thinking. So we wait and adapt to how the war moves? It seems we cannot do much else. Mors shook his head once. For now we cannot act openly. But we will monitor the situation. We cannot have Aerys or Rhaegar on the throne, they will only make things worse for what is coming. They must be removed from the table. I will see to Rhaegar's removal myself. He finished, ruthless. Doran said, and you will have our help. Silence fell again, heavy with the weight of their decision. Chapter 51, Chapter Slay, From Board Games to Blood Games. It had been 3 months since the rescue of Princess Elia Martell. She had taken permanent residence at Sunfort, refusing to leave Mors's side. With the Sheridan also carrying child, the two women had grown inseparable. Their circle widened to include Alyssa Euler, Cyrenaico, Sienna, Malara Hightower, Nuria, and Princess Melario would join them when she visited, often with little Ariane, now 2 years old, at her side. Together they passed long afternoons with tea, Sivas, and the new games. Mors had introduced chess, checkers, and a simplified parcheesi he named race. Melie Euler and her daughter-in-law, Jane Fowler, soon joined as well, and before long the women's tournaments had become a courtly craze. Malara, winning more often than not, proudly declared herself the board game queen of the Stepstones, destined to rule for a millennium. The men held their own smaller contests when free from duty, but what pleased Mors most was seeing the ladies and especially Elia living with laughter despite the shadow of war. The realm beyond offered no such peace. As Mors had anticipated, Prince Rhaegar soon learned what had transpired and who was responsible. Fishermen near Dragonstone reported the fleet that had struck, sinking the patrol ships, and swore they had seen the black banners bearing the Dornish sun and spear. Through Rhaegar's urgings and Varys's whispers, King Aerys commanded that Mors come to court and face judgment. Surprisingly, the king did not name him traitor outright, though rumor held that he burned several courtiers in a fit of rage. Most tragically, Lord Jonaran, long imprisoned and weakened, finally succumbed to heart failure compounded by his many injuries. His death shattered the fragile stalemate that had held the realm in check, and the war lurched forward once more. Robert Baratheon's fury became the stuff of legend, yet at Ashford he showed a sharper edge than wrath alone. Knowing Reach reinforcements were advancing after dissident Stormlanders fled into their protection, prepared his stand at Ashford. He seized the town and laid his trap. Using a blend of guerrilla strikes followed by a final hammer and anvil assault, Robert's host shattered the Loyalists thanks in part to Sir Victor Tyrell's poor command and refusal to heed Lord Randall Tarley's counsel. The Reach and Stormlander Loyalists suffered dearly, 3,500 Reachmen slain, including Sir Victor himself, and another 1,500 Stormlanders cut down. The slain were not more because Lord Tarly quickly took the helm of the army and retreated to safety, after sacrificing the Stormlanders. Robert lost 2,000, but the victory was his. The surviving 3,500 dissident Stormlanders bent the knee to him, swelling his host to over 13,000. With their lords taken captive, Robert marched north to seek allies in the Riverlands. Meanwhile, Prince Rhaegar and Lord Tywin departed King's Landing at the head of 12,000 Crownlander troops, intent on intercepting Robert's host and, if needed, establishing a forward base at Harrenhal. With them rode Sir Oswell and Sir Jonothor Derry of the King's Guard, as well as its newest brothers Sir Miles Mouton and Sir Richard Lynmouth, once squires of Rhaegar and knighted by his own hand. From the west, Sir Kevin Lannister marched out of Casterly Rock with 15,000 men, accompanied by Lord Roland Crakehall and Lord Daemon Marbrand, intent on linking with Tywin's host. But the Riverlands flared before the two forces could unite. House Derry and House Went, mustering 5,000 for the crown, were intercepted by Lord Denys, the new Lord of the Vale, who marched with 20,000 men hungry for vengeance. In the clash, 2,000 loyalists were slain, another 2,500 captured, and only a few hundred scattered. Victorious, Denys pressed on to Riverrun to join Lord Robert and Lord Hoster Tully, and to speak of drawing the Riverlands openly into rebellion. In the south, Lord Mace Tyrell himself advanced with a massive host of 35,000, reinforced by 6,000 survivors gathered under Randyll Tarly. Though Mace sought to disgrace Tarly publicly for Ashford and his kinsman's death, his bannermen dissuaded him. He would fight to restore his honour. He instead divided his forces, 21,000 under his own command to besiege Storm's End, while 20,000 marched under Sir Quinton Tyrell with Randyll Tarly, Lord Leo Ashford, and Lord Benny's Fossoway. Lords Mathis Rowan and Quentin Roxton rode with Mace. Lord Leighton Hightower, however, still held Old Town neutral. At sea, Lord Pakester Redwyne sailed to blockade the Stormlands with the Redwyne fleet, but would the Stepstones allow them to pass? Current forces engaged. Royal faction, 70k. Opposition faction, 36k. Late 279 AC Sunfort, the Stepstones. Mors sat in the courtyard with the ladies as another round of games unfolded. At one table, Melie and Melario bent over a chessboard, brows furrowed in deep concentration, though both jumped whenever a burst of laughter or groans came from the other table, where Malara Hightower, Elia Martell, Alyssa Euler and Jane Fowler were locked in a raucous match of race. Jane had settled easily into the circle, but it was always Malara who made the most noise. "No! Don't block my path!" Malara cried. "I am the unbeatable queen of board games, why must you gang up on me?" Elia, restored in spirit though heavily pregnant now, laughed. "How else will we shut you up? As Mors often says, a tree that stands too tall will be the first cut down." Jane and Alyssa joined in her laughter. Ashura sat beside Mors with her tea, watching him more than the games. His gaze seemed far away. "Mors, my son," she said softly. "What troubles you?" Her voice brought him back. He gave a faint smile, strained at the edges. "Many things. But you don't need to trouble yourself. Just focus on staying safe and healthy for yourself and the babe." Ashura rolled her eyes, set down her cup, and pinched his side until he flinched. He chuckled. Ow, all right, I'll talk." She huffed with mock anger but laced her fingers through his. "I may be with child, but I can still help. Even if it's only by listening." Mors sighed. "I was thinking of the war. Of John and Albert's deaths. Of so many dying senselessly. It's unacceptable." Ashura said nothing, but her grip on his hand tightened. "And now," Mors continued, "Ares demands I come to King's Landing for judgment, no doubt Rhaegar's doing, and others plotting in the shadows. Even if we don't openly join the rebels, I cannot allow Ares and Rhaegar to go on ruling. I've already reached out to the north." Surprisingly, Brandon Stark remembered our talk at Lannisport fondly. Who would have guessed? Ashura giggled. He was left speechless before you. You handled him with such authority and tact he didn't know what to do. Mors laughed. That he didn't. He hesitated, then blurted the words out, I offered to help free Eddard from King's Landing. Ashura's smile vanished. She turned to him sharply. You did what? You don't mean to go yourself, do you? He met her gaze without answering, then gave a strained smile. Mors, she pressed, her voice tight with worry. That's madness. Why risk your life for him? Because I can, he said, serious now. At Dragonstone I realized something. I am, almost a one-man army. My strength, my speed, my skill, no one in Westeros can match me, and they may never will. He looked deeply at Ashura. I can keep myself safe, Ashura. I won't leave you. Ashura hesitated, but finally nodded. I don't want to risk our troops, Mors went on, but without help the opposition may be crushed. If Eddard dies or if he's rescued, the North will move. Helping him is the most effective way to weaken the throne. Ashura studied him, torn between awe and dread. And how will you even enter King's Landing? You, of all people? You look more Targaryen than the Targaryens themselves. Mors coughed. Obviously I'll disguise myself. Paint my hair, darken my skin, don't sweat the small things. Ashura smirked, though worry lingered in her eyes. Of course. Sunny always finds a way. Mors squeezed her hand. Don't worry. I will. Race. Malara bellowed, leaping to her feet in triumph. Melario dropped the chess piece she had been about to move, startled. The board game queen of the Stepstones defends her crown. Malara proclaimed. Despite your coalition, I reign supreme. Ashura and Mors exchanged a look, then burst out laughing. 2 days later. Prince Mors walked solemnly onto the Stepstone flagship, the Radiant Spear. At his back came Sir Jeremy Norwich, Sir Karen Toland, Sir Garth Hightower, and Sir Arthur Dane. Waiting at the prow was Sir Davin Quar. Davin bowed. My prince, we are ready to engage at your word. Have we heard from the scouts? Mors asked. How far off are they now? The Red Wine fleet should be 4 to 5 hours out, by their report, Davin replied. Mors nodded. And the final arrangements? How many ships and men have we committed? Sir Bedwick, Sir Idrin, and Sir Talor each sent 40% of their strength, Davin said. Together with our main fleet, we have 160 warships and 5,000 men. 90 ships remain on patrol under their command, but so long as we end this swiftly, it will not be an issue. Good, Mors said. Then let's make it swift. I've no wish to give those bastards in Essos any chance to stir trouble while we're tied up here. Signal the fleet. We'll link with Duran's host another 100 warships, by his last Raven's report, and engage them before they reach the Stepstones. Davin saluted. At once, my prince. Mors turned his gaze westward, the wind tugging his cloak. What will you choose, Lord Redwine? Late 279 AC Summer Sea, before the Stepstones. For an hour the fleets faced one another in silence. To the west, 175 Redwine warships. To the east, 260 vessels flying the banners of Dorne and the Stepstones. The summer sea lay still between them, as though holding its breath. At last, the Redwine flagship raised a white flag of parley and eased cautiously forward. In answer, the Dornish Sun and the Radiant Spear did the same, cutting through the waters until the three ships met in the center. On the Redwine deck came Lord Pakester Redwine, flanked by 4 knights who seemed more nervous than their lord. On the Dornish side, Prince Doran Martell stood with Prince Oberyn, Sir Ormond Euler, and Ario Hota. From the Stepstones, Prince Mors Martell approached, Solaris resting across his shoulder, flanked by Sir Jeremy Norwich, Sir Arthur Dane, Sir Karen Toland, and Sir Garth Hightower. Lord Pakester began, his voice taut. My princes, my lords, what is the meaning of this? I am under orders from my liege to blockade Storm's End in service to his grace, King Aerys Targaryen. Are Dorne and the Stepstones declaring rebellion? Mors smirked as he strode forward, spear balanced carelessly on his shoulder. Rebellion? Storm's End? We've no idea what you mean, Lord Pakester. We are merely guarding our seas against dangerous elements. Imagine our surprise to find such a great fleet bearing down upon us. And imagine our delight when it was you. He tilted his head, eyes glinting. It's been some time. You look well, perhaps a touch heavier. Lord Pakester blinked, flustered, and instinctively glanced down at his stomach before catching himself. What nonsense is this, Prince Mors? This is no jest. The rebels threaten, the realm trade falters, the small folk suffer. Robert Baratheon must be broken before worse follows. Is he not your enemy? Duran's voice cut in calmly, but with cold authority. My lord, have you not heard? The king demands my brother Mors attend court to face judgment. For what crime, none can say. But you know what judgment means these days. Fire. Lord Pakester paled, eyes flicking from Doran to Mors. Then, you mean to fight us? If we must, Mors said. His tone was light, but his gaze was like steel. But I'd rather not waste good lives over a king unworthy of them. You know the knight at my side, Sir Garth Hightower. Pakester's lips tightened. He nodded once. The Hightowers and I have an understanding, Mors continued. They remain neutral. We remain neutral. So let us avoid senseless bloodshed. Return to the arbor. Declare your neutrality. Continue our trade. Preserve your strength. Let others fight Aerys' wars. He leaned closer, voice low and dangerous. This is my one and only offer, given for old friendship and courtesy. The air seemed to shift. A weight pressed down on Lord Pakester, as though the sea itself had risen against him. His knees trembled. But if you refuse, Mors went on softly, we will destroy your fleet here, and it will be you who declared war between Dorne and the Iron Throne. We will descend upon the arbor, and then Highgarden, as open rebels. All Westeros will remember it was your choice that doomed them. The silence on the three ships was suffocating. Oberyn twirled his dagger with a grin. Arthur Dayne's hand hovered over Don's hilt, the rest looked ready to strike at the smallest movement. No one moved. At last, Lord Pakester swallowed hard. I will withdraw. We will return to the arbor and declare neutrality in this war. Mors's smirk softened into a genuine smile. He turned to the Redwyne Knights. See? A wise and decisive lord. He has spared your lives and your families. Applaud him. The knights glanced at one another, uncertain. Mors's eyes hardened, and the invisible weight pressed down again. I said, applaud. Cold sweat broke out on their brows. They clapped awkwardly. Hurrah for Lord Pakester. Mors nodded, satisfied. Good. Now return home. When you do, speak with Lord Leighton, he will set your mind at ease. Congratulations, my lord, on choosing wisely. Lord Pakester disengaged. Within the hour, the Redwyne fleet turned its sails back toward the arbor. The Dornish sun and the radiant spear remained at anchor, watching them go. Doran exhaled. That went better than I expected. I thought we would see our first battle today. Mors smiled faintly. So did I. But I felt him waver. He wanted no part of this. I merely gave him the excuse he needed. Oberyn barked a laugh. So that was your intention? Seven hells, you sounded more pirate lord than prince. I half expected you to shout, see that water? I put it there. That salt in it? Mine as well. Pay the toll if you want to pass. He mimed a buccaneer's swagger and burst into laughter. Even Doran smiled at that, sharing a look with Mors. Yes, Doran said quietly, but neutrality is its own declaration. Sooner or later, we will be drawn in. Mors nodded. Then let us be ready. Continue guarding the Stoneway and the Prince's Pass. If war comes to Dorne, we will meet it prepared. As you can see, the stepstones already stand ready. Doran's gaze swept over the fleet that had sailed with Mors. This was but a portion of his strength, yet the ships were sleek, well-forged, and deadly, the crews aboard them drilled to precision. They might number fewer than the great hosts of Westeros, but their discipline and readiness spoke louder than sheer size. A flicker of awe touched Doran's eyes as he inclined his head in silent approval. Oberyn crossed to Mors's ship, eager to visit Elia and Cyrenaico. What could have been a bloody clash ended without bloodshed, yet its repercussions were only beginning. 2 weeks later, King's Landing. A merchant cart, laden with apples and berries, passed inspection at the mud gate and rattled into King's Landing. In a narrow alley, 5 figures slipped away from the cart. Among them was a hunched old man with a sickly stoop, his face marked by unsightly warts. Once hidden in shadow, the man peeled them off false growths, revealing himself as Prince Mors Martell. The cloaked men at his side were Sir Caron Toland, Sir Arthur Dane, Sir Garth Hightower, and Darrow the Swift. Mors's eyes swept the alley. To Flea Bottom. Our contact waits in an alehouse. Darrow, you scouted it. Lead. My prince, Darrow answered. They wound their way through alleys and back streets, avoiding gold cloak patrols and the eyes of any passing nobles. Arthur was too recognizable as a king's guard, and Mors more so, not yet outlawed, but summoned to court under threat. Discovery would mean unnecessary trouble. After an hour of careful progress, they entered a shabby alehouse in Flea Bottom. It was what they expected: sour air, questionable stew bubbling in pots, and rough men slumped over their cups. Their quarry sat in a shadowed corner, a tankard before him untouched. Mors approached and sat. The others claimed the next table, dragging away its drunken occupants without protest. Such things went unnoticed here. Mors inclined his head. Sir Barristan. In plain clothes and a hooded cloak, Sir Barristan Selmy nodded. Prince Mors. His gaze shifted to Arthur Dane across the room, their eyes meeting with an unspoken weight. Both inclined their heads in acknowledgement. A serving girl drifted over. Mors waved her off with a terse order. Ale. For me and my sellsword brothers. When she left, silence pressed between Mors and Selmy until the knight finally spoke. Is this the path you choose? You truly intend to free Eddard Stark? Mors held his gaze. Ares is my kin, but he's gone too far. Especially Rhaegar, he has gone too far. With Eddard free, the North will rise unhindered and help stop them. That is what must be done. Barristan's brow furrowed. Even Rhaegar? He might not be all he appears to be, but surely he can't be as bad as his grace? You can still reconsider, I've only scraps of what passed. Rhaegar raged in court, speaking of your betrayal, that you stormed off with Princess Elia, sank ships in anger, and Sir Arthur followed as her guard. For the royal family, a mundane familial quarrel at most, all things considered. Mors's brows drew tight. He turned to Arthur, who looked equally darkened by the lie. Mundane. Mors's voice hardened. He imprisoned, tortured, and killed Elia's guards. John Connington beat her, avoiding her belly as not to harm her child, and even Arthur was struck down when he tried to intervene. I killed that bastard, John. But death was too clean an end for him. Barristan's face went ashen. What? Imprisoned? Tortured? Wait, John Connington? But the court was told he fell to pirates. Why would Rhaegar? He trailed off, aghast. Mors exhaled slowly. I don't know what his game is, but he lies as easily as he breathes. Silence hung. Then Mors leaned forward. So. Eddard Stark. Barristan sagged, as if yielding to a burden too heavy. He nodded. Very well. I will help you. He drained his ale in one gulp and rose. The group followed. As they walked, Selmy said quietly, I'll take you through a hidden path to the dungeons. But once there, you are on your own. Gods help me, I hope we don't meet as enemies. Mors gave him a look but held his tongue. Then he froze. The others halted too. Mors felt it killing intent, animosity. None of the common folk would dare deliberately harbor such malice toward a band of sellswords, so this wasn't from a normal person. He looked around quickly and noticed a presence slipped away into the dark, smug with triumph. An ominous premonition washed over him as the name formed in his mind. Varys. A moment later gold cloaks poured into the street from the alleys on every side, shields gleaming in the lamplight, hemming them in with sheer numbers. Barristan spun in disbelief. Impossible. I wasn't followed. How? Mors said nothing but the anger in his eyes was unmistakable. 3 men strode forward from the ranks. The leader bore a noble, hard-cut face stern, yet lined with impatience. A sardonic smile tugged at his mouth as he tried to cloak it beneath a veneer of courtesy. Prince Mors Targaryen, he announced. I am Sir Jeremy Ricker, commander of the City Watch. With me are my captains, Sir Alliser Thorne and Sir Harwin Buckle. By royal command, we are to escort you to the Red Keep. Come quietly, there's no need for this to turn unpleasant. Chapter 52, Chapter Slay Eighth, The Spider's Thread. 3 men strode forward from the ranks. The leader bore a noble, hard-cut face stern, yet lined with impatience. A sardonic smile tugged at his mouth as he tried to cloak it beneath a veneer of courtesy. Prince Mors Targaryen, he announced. I am Sir Jeremy Ricker, commander of the City Watch. With me are my captains, Sir Alliser Thorne and Sir Harwin Buckle. By royal command, we are to escort you to the Red Keep. Come quietly, there's no need for this to turn unpleasant. Mors scanned the crowd. At least 200 gold cloaks surrounded them, shields ready though swords remained sheathed. He turned to Barristan, Karen, Arthur, Garth, and Darrow, his voice low. They don't recognize you. Keep your hoods up. We follow, but wait for my signal. He stepped forward, lowering his hood to face Sir Jeremy Ricker. Very well. Lead on. But, Commander, does this not seem excessive? 200 men for such a simple summons? I shouldn't need to remind you I am an advisor to the king, and a great lord of the realm. Before Ricker could answer, Sir Alliser Thorne spoke, venom on his tongue. It seems he had been holding in some opinions about Mors. You may look like them, my lord, but you are a Martell. He spat the name. And have you not noticed? Great lords are dying rather easily these days. The cruel satisfaction in his voice twisted the words. Alliser, enough. Ricker barked, but the damage was done. They had been walking as they spoke, but Mors halted. The others stopped as well, tension rising like drawn steel. Alliser stood smirking, unapologetic until Mors moved. Crack! A lightning-fast punch smashed into his jaw, teeth shattering. Alliser flew 2 yards back, crashing into the line of men and dropping several with him. Prince Mors. Ricker spun, drawing steel. Mors's gaze cut into him with contempt. That was mercy. Had I wished, he'd be dead. Do not forget who I am. I am a Targaryen. The king is my cousin. I am prince of this realm, yet you stand by as your men speak so? You allow this, commander? Are you rebelling? Even as he spoke, Mors's eyes flicked to Idrin and the others who had arrived in the confusion, lingering by the merchant cart now piled with hay to keep their cover. A quick nod sent them into motion, and with a sharp flick of his hand he signalled those behind him Arthur, Karen, Garth, Darrow, and Barristan. Ricker faltered, sheathing his blade. The gold cloaks, misreading, lowered shields and eased back. No. This was an oversight, a misunderstanding. It will. Boom. Fire flasks burst in the sky. In the chaos, Mors slammed into Rickard, driving him through the men behind. Over 20 fell. Dazed, Rickard barely had time to groan before Mors struck again, a sharp jab to the jaw that dropped him unconscious. Tossing him aside, Mors surged through the gap. His companions ran with him as a cart of burning hay roared into the street, rolled in by Cale the Brute. Behind them, chaos erupted as fire and smoke filled the alleys. An explosion thundered near the Dragon Pit ruins, a diversion. Only when they were certain they weren't pursued did they stop to breathe. Sir Idrin grinned. Well, that was exciting. Sir Talor shot Auradan a look. Didn't you say this would be in and out? Auradan rolled his eyes, muttering, obviously, something went wrong. Seven hells, Baristan growled. What's going on? How did they find us? Mors gave him a pitying look. You think you weren't followed? I saw someone slip away, smug as a rat. I'm certain it was Varys. Varys. Baristan frowned, then realization struck. He nodded grimly. Yes, if it was him, it makes sense. That dishonorable cur, but why? Auradan's eyes widened, a knowing look flashing across his face. We'll discuss it as we move, Mors said. We still need to free Eddard. Is that wise? Baristan pressed. If Varys is involved, they'll be waiting. It could be a trap. Mors smirked faintly. Of course it's a trap. But a trap only works if it's sprung. I won't waste their efforts now. Baristan stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. Idrin, meanwhile, laughed so hard tears streaked his face, and he slapped Cale on the back. Cale, scowling, shoved him. Knock it off, you idiot. Mors rolled his eyes. Enough. Move. We don't have time to waste. They broke into a run again, now with Sir Idrin, Sir Talor, Cale, and Auradan falling in alongside them. They reached a dead-end alley in Flea Bottom, where brush and stone hid a rise of the Red Keep's hill. After ensuring they weren't followed, Baristan lifted a torch from the ground, lit it, and handed it to Arthur. He then drew his blade and pressed it into a narrow slot between stone and earth. Click! A concealed door swung open. They slipped inside, sealing it behind them. Baristan used the torch to light torches on the ground and handed them out. Then started walking down the hidden passage. Arthur frowned. Baristan, why did I not know of this? The older knight gave a dry smirk. At any time, only 2 Kingsguard know of these passages, along with the commander. The longest-serving brothers, usually. At present, myself, and Sir he caught himself. Arthur's eyes widened. Sir Harlan. Baristan's expression soured, but Mors cut in. We're past that now. And if I'm not mistaken, someone else already knows of these passages. You don't mean Varys, Baristan said skeptically. He's been here too little time. How could he know what many Kingsguard don't? Mors shook his head. That's what he does, uncovers what's meant to stay hidden. If I had to guess, he saw you or Harlan use one of the doors, and the spider never lets go once he finds a thread. Baristan grimaced, the silence heavy before he finally sighed. Harlan, I can see that. He's not the man he once was. With that, he pressed on into the dark. Mors's eyes lingered on him, a thought unspoken. It could have been Baristan himself, but I won't call him on it. Occasional water dripped from the stone above as they traversed the dark passage. Garth whispered, do these tunnels connect the whole Red Keep? Baristan mulled it over. Some do. Others lead to hidden places in the city. Some are blocked. Even after centuries, I doubt we've found all the secrets of this castle. At last they reached the hidden passage that seemed to be the destination Baristan had sought. Here. Beyond lies the dungeon where Lord Eddard is held. There will be guards. He exhaled, weariness plain. Try not to kill them. Please. Mors inclined his head. Of course, Sir Baristan. I'm sure you noticed we could have killed half the watch earlier, but we didn't. We only want Stark. Relief softened Baristan's features. Then wait for my word. The passage unlocked with a dull click. Baristan slipped through first, listening intently. His face darkened as he turned back. No guards. Not a sound. Strange. Arthur frowned at Mors. The trap. Mors gave an easy shrug, lips quirking. Your guess is as good as mine. Let's see. Baristan pinched the bridge of his nose. 7 help me, I don't think I've sighed this much in my life. They moved carefully through the dim halls, past empty cells. Turning the last corner, they froze. A lone man sat with a sword laid across his knees. Rising slowly, he came to his full height, towering near 6'7", 200 centimeters, shoulders broad, mail and white enameled plate gleaming faintly in the torchlight. A heavy cloak draped his back. His shoulder-length hair, streaked with grey, framed a weathered yet noble face. Planting the sword before him, hands resting on the hilt, he stood in a sentinel's stance. His very presence commanded the space. Prince Mors. His voice was deep, measured, carrying in the silence. So it's you. I've been expecting you. Mors blinked in surprise, then dipped his chin. Lord Commander Gerald Hightower. Of all men, I did not think to find you here. Gerald's gaze shifted past him. Sir Baristan. Sir Arthur. He gave them a nod of recognition. Both knights stiffened, then saluted. Lord Commander. Mors's violet eyes narrowed. You wait for us, yet you stand alone. What is your purpose here? Gerald looked down at the blade in his hands, turning it slowly. Purpose? I am a king's guard. That is purpose enough. But when word reached me left on a note, no doubt bait that someone would come for Lord Stark, I chose to come alone. I'm weary of needless slaughter. If you would have Eddard Stark, then first you must go past me. He lifted his helm, settled it over his head, and hefted his shield. So tell me, shall it be all at once? Or will I have the chance to face Prince Mors myself? Arthur stepped forward. Let me. You needn't do this. But Mors shook his head firmly. No, a knight such as Sir Gerald comes once in a generation. This honor is mine. Hold the passage. He drew his sword and Valyrian dagger, stepping forward to take his place. With Solaris left behind for the infiltration, he settled into a dual-wielding guard, both blades poised and ready. May it be a worthy fight, Lord Commander. Gerald's voice rumbled through the helm. May it be so. He surged forward with a heavy slash. Steel rang as Mors angled aside, tapping the strike wide with almost casual precision, his dagger flashing as he stepped in for a kick. Gerald braced, his shield absorbing the impact, yet still slid back with widened eyes. By the warrior, he muttered. Your strength, it's greater than mine. A feral smile touched his lips as he charged again, shield first. Mors vaulted up, planting a foot on the shield, flipping over the Lord Commander's shoulder. He slashed downward as he passed. Gerald caught the blow on his sword, but the sheer force staggered him back a step. Mors landed lightly, pressed the attack, sword flashing in quick arcs. Gerald met him strike for strike, shield clanging, blade darting in tight riposts. The younger man's speed was blistering. Twice Mors slipped inside Gerald's guard, his dagger kissing at weak points in the armor throat, underarm, yet he pulled the blades away at the last instant, letting the fight breathe. Gerald's seasoned eye caught it, and though his lungs heaved, he straightened with grim pride. Not mercy, he growled, pushing forward with another sweep of his shield, show respect. Their blades clashed again and again, sparks dancing in the gloom. Gerald's strength was immense, every strike of his great sword carrying bone-breaking weight, but Mors absorbed it, redirected it, and flowed around it like water. Still, he gave the Lord Commander room to answer, parrying with enough restraint that Gerald could keep his footing. Finally, Gerald overcommitted on a thrust. Mors turned his dagger against the blade, pivoted, and drove a brutal kick into the center of the white breastplate. The King's Guard commander was hurled back 4 yards, crashing to the stones. His armor caved where the blow had landed. Groaning, he forced himself upright. 7 save me, feels like a mule kicked me. He spat a mouthful of blood onto the stone, then reached for his sword again with stubborn resolve. Mors approached, point of his sword lowering to Gerald's throat. His voice was calm, but in the quiet felt chilling. Yield. The word seemed to thunder in the narrow hall. Gerald looked down at his dented breastplate, then up at the young prince. His breath left him in a sigh. You still went easy on me. His sword slipped from his grip. Yield. I yield. Mors sheathed his blades, then extended a hand. Good. Gerald hesitated, then accepted the grasp, hauled to his feet. Why? His voice cracked with something heavier than battle. Knowing I barred your way, why spare me? Because you carried no true killing intent, Mors said simply. This was duty, not malice. You came alone to spare your men, didn't you? Gerald's eyes widened, but he said nothing. At that moment a gaunt, shackled, and gagged Ned Stark leaned weakly against the bars. The sight of Mors made his eyes gleam with desperate hope. Quickly get him out, Mors ordered. Idrin, Talor, Kale, and Horan rushed to Eddard Stark's cell, while Auraborne, Karen, Garth, and Darrow held their posts in the hall. Arthur and Barristan stepped toward Gerald, burdened with unspoken thoughts, unsure what words could meet the moment. As they worked at the cell, Gerald turned to Arthur. Sir Arthur. I can imagine what you've endured. Since you have chosen your path, do not let vows chain you. As Lord Commander, I release you honorably discharged from the King's Guard. May you still embody the best of knighthood. Arthur's breath hitched. His eyes burned. He bowed his head deeply, voice choked. Thank you, Lord Commander. Then Gerald faced Barristan. Sir Barristan, my friend. You've ever upheld your vows. But remember you are a knight before all else. Barristan started. Gerald, I only. Gerald raised a gauntlet to still him. It is too late for me. My vows bind me deeply, even as they consume me. But for you. He drew in a breath, voice low but resolute. As Lord Commander of the King's Guard, I hereby release you. Serve honor, not madness. Barristan's face twisted with shock and grief. No. Gerald, don't. But Gerald only shook his head, lifting his helm again. Without another word, he turned and limped into the shadows, alone. By then, the cell had been opened. Kale and Horan helped carry the frail Lord Stark out. Prince. Mors. Ned rasped. Thank you. Mors gave a steady smile. Rest, friend. He laid a hand on Ned's brow, sending a pulse of aura to ease him into unconsciousness. Kale, carry him. Horan, aid him if necessary. We move on. As the others passed through the secret door, Barristan lingered behind, torn. Mors paused. Sir Barristan. You feel lost. Conflicted. But the realm needs knights like you. I need knights like you. Walk with me for now. You'll find your answer in time. For a long moment, Barristan searched his eyes. Then he nodded. Very well. The hidden passage sealed shut behind them, plunging all into consuming darkness. Mors let out a long sigh, palm to his face. 7 hells, did no one think to light the torch? As they neared the end of the hidden passage, the faint scent of salt filled the air. They unbarred the exit, and the sea and rocks came into view. Night had fallen, visibility was poor. Behind them loomed a sheer cliff that seemed to rise straight into the Red Keep itself, impossible to climb. Mors peered out. I think we're behind the Red Keep. Baristan, do you know the way from here? Baristan shook his head. No, I only knew the passage existed. I've never taken it. Mors grunted, stepping further out to scout. Our destination is the Kingswood, past Blackwater Bay. If we can't find or build a vessel, we swim. Darrow cracked a grin. Then there's no time like the present. They searched the rocky shore, but found little. No trees, no driftwood, only jagged stone and scrub. Mors cursed inwardly. Damn it! We'll have to swim. Then 3 lights appeared across the water, drifting closer from the direction of Blackwater Bay. Mors straightened. At attention! Someone's coming! They tightened formation, Eddard's unconscious body protected in the center. 3 boats closed in, about 50 men in all. A few leveled bows at them. Even in the dark, Mors could see enough their gear was mismatched, their posture loose. Not gold cloaks. Cell swords most likely. From the middle boat a man called, "I. Any of you Mors?" Mors feigned ignorance. Mors? Who's that? Our boat sank, we stumbled into this inlet. Care to help? One of the sellswords muttered to his leader, "Boss, you think that bald lord lied to us?" The leader shrugged. Doesn't matter. We were paid to kill, so we kill. Boys, take. A knife silenced him, buried in his eye. In the same heartbeat, more blades flashed, felling half a dozen before the sellswords knew what struck them. Take them out! Mors roared, aura flooding his men as he charged, sword and dagger drawn. Steel rang. Mors cut one down with a thrust, parried another blow with his dagger, and spun into a killing stroke. Baristan gasped as he cleaved through an attacker, surprise flaring across his face. His body felt, sharper, faster. What's happening to me? He muttered as he struck again. Arthur cut a man down beside him. You'll know soon enough. For now fight. Behind them, Garth and Karen held Mors's flanks, thinning the sellswords with relentless precision. Within 10 minutes, the fight was done. Only 3 captives remained, bound and quivering. Darrow crouched nearby, helping Auraborne Sand bind a shallow cut. Mors gave a curt order. Prep one of the boats. Sink the other 2. He turned to the prisoners. I'll spare one of you. The rest die. The one who lives is the one who answers me best. Understood. Please spare me, one begged. No, me. I'm doing this for my dog, another piped up, as if that settled everything. Wait, my 660-year-old daughter and my 5-year-old mother need me, the third cried, words tumbling into absurdity. Mors raised an eyebrow, stifling a snort. He let the pleadings die, then asked the first question. What were your orders? All 3 stammered the same. To kill Mors or anyone near here. Mors pressed. What did he look like? Bald. Bald, strange voice. Cloaked, smelled like flowers. Or rot. Mors's jaw tightened. Various. Final question, he said. What were your orders after success? We were to return to the inn in Fishmonger Square. Collect the rest of the coin. Good. Mors nodded and without hesitation, cut down the first 2. The last one wept in relief. Thank you, thank you. You're welcome. Mors said softly, then flicked a hand. Karen's blade did the rest. Mors murmured as the body hit the ground, I said I'd spare you. I never promised what the others would do. They rowed quietly toward the Kingswood, avoiding ships as best they could. The hush of the night, the tang of salt on the air, and the steady drip of water from the oars offered a strange calm after so much chaos. Halfway across Blackwater Bay, alarms rang from King's Landing. Hurry, Mors urged, pulling hard at the oars. Eddard's absence has been found out. This is the final stretch. They reached the Kingswood in record time and dragged the boat deep among the trees, hiding it from view. Eddard stirred, groaning as his eyes fluttered open. No. Don't please, hey. I'm out. Mors, thank you. Mors knelt beside him, resting a hand on his shoulder. Eddard, we're in the Kingswood. Just a little further, and you'll be safe. Sleep a while longer, you'll wake in peace. Thank you. Eddard breathed, before Mors sent him back into slumber with a touch of aura. Let's move, Mors ordered. They pressed through the forest until they came to Windwater Lake, where their ship lay hidden. Mors gave a low call. You can come out, it's us. 10 men emerged from the shadows, bows drawn. At their head was Sir Bedwick. Prince Mors. It's me. Relief swept through the men as they lowered their weapons. The sight of the prince and his company dirty, torn, but alive was enough. Good, Bedwick said, though his eyes flicked warily to Baristan Selmy. Are we leaving at once? Yes, Mors replied. They may be on our tail. This is Sir Baristan Selmy, he's with us now. Though surprised, the men held their tongues. Together they pulled the Eclipse from its hiding place and set out into the Windwater. As they slipped back into Blackwater Bay, lights could be seen combing the coasts to the northwest. Arthur frowned. They're searching the shores near King's Landing. No resting, Mors said firmly. We move until we reach my fleet. Only then will we be safe. Fortunately, the Eclipse cut through the water faster than most ships. Before long, the danger was behind them. 1 week later, Sunfort, the Stepstones. Mors had returned that morning after leaving Eddard in Maester Orwyne's care, a raven already sent to Lord Rickard Stark with the news of his son's safety. Arthur and Baristan had gone off to speak in private. The war had shifted greatly in the last 2 weeks, but Mors set those thoughts aside for now. Ashura was so relieved to have him back that she had scarcely let him out of her sight. Oh, and he was a traitor now. King Ares had declared that all his forces should focus on bringing him to justice. Ashura, Elia, Malara, Alyssa, Luwin, and Mors shared dinner together. Elia spoke first. Brother, what you did was brave, but reckless. You must take more care. Luwin, the patch over his eye lending him a roguish air, shook his head. Elia, I know your concern. We all share it. But Mors is no longer a boy, he is a great lord of the realm, and much more. With the strength he carries, he's shown remarkable restraint. Were it me, I'd be a one-man killing machine of war, in the thick of it all. Ashura reached across the table. Perhaps. But it doesn't stop the worry. Still, I'm glad Lord Stark lives, though he looked in poor health. But now we are officially at war. A somber silence fell until Malara cut in brightly. It's fine. Morsi beat them up and showed who's boss. It was fun to watch. He can keep doing it. Mors arched a brow. You were spying again, weren't you? Malara grinned unrepentantly. Only when I could. You spent too much time at sea, it was dull. Oh, and what's that game you play when peeing? Are you trying to see how far it goes? Mors dragged a hand down his face. Of course that's what she'd watch for. The table erupted in laughter, echoing through the hall. Even Elia chuckled, and Ashura shook her head with a smile she couldn't quite hide. Malara only grinned wider, basking in the chaos she had stirred. For the first time in many days, the sound of war and worry seemed far away.